Chapter 1190. Xie Daoling held the jade tag in her hand and carefully read it. A few minutes later, she told Gu Shan, "This is the temple of burning incense. According to the ancient customs, all cultivators who want to climb the heaven-supporting pillar must burn incense here for a day before they can climb the heaven-supporting pillar and head to Mount Sumeru." Gu Shan asked. "The heaven-supporting pillar has already been broken, and the heaven-supporting pillar world has become completely desolate. Shifu still wants to follow the ancient customs. I'm going to silently cultivate here for a night. Tomorrow I'll begin climbing the heaven-supporting pillar." Saying so, Xie Daoling summoned the spirit tortoise. She gave the jade tag to the spirit tortoise and said, "Same as before, return it." Gu Shan asked, "Shifu, you've memorized everything?" Xie Daoling nodded. "There are 94 problems with the scriptures in here. 1089 can be improved, and 61 have different meanings. I've marked them all out and made the corresponding improvements. Consider it my thanks for using their scriptures." Gu Shan asked again, "Did Shifu do the same thing for every cultivator's scriptures from before?" "Yes, after all, there's no grudge between us, so I used their scriptures and gave them some pointers to help them avoid going astray. This way, we don't owe each other anything. That's the best." Gu Shan sighed in admiration, but then recalled how those people scolded her just now and held herself back. The spirit tortoise received the jade tag and disappeared somewhere. Only the master and disciple were left in the temple. Gu Shan thought for a bit and asked, "Shifu, you really don't need to face a tribulation to continue breaking through?" Xie Daoling nodded. "I don't know why it's like this either," she slowly said. "But ever since I refined the golden lotus, my understanding of cultivation has far surpassed the past. I can understand the meaning of many things at a glance, and occasionally, a few images would appear in my mind." "What images?" Gu Shan asked. Xie Daoling appeared a bit confused and answered in a low voice, "I can't explain it clearly. Sometimes it's creatures I've never seen before. Sometimes it's the scene of a world being destroyed, as well as a lot of unfamiliar faces and languages. Or maybe it's a dream. Can you see cultivators from the age of old?" Gu Shan asked. The reason why she asked this was because when Gu Shan was searching for the Heaven Sword, she once entered Xie Daoling's dreamscape to prevent the temporal oasis where the Heaven Sword was being forged from being discovered. The immortal king hid the final jade disc inside Xie Daoling's dreamscape. Xie Daoling thought for a bit and replied, "No, if it was a cultivator, I would definitely be able to investigate a bit, but the things and scenes I saw in my dream are things I've never seen before in my entire life." The two of them looked at each other. Xie Daoling waved her hand to arrange several barrier formations, then asked in a low voice, "I once taught you all of my techniques. Have you learned Unbreakable Mountain Range?" "Yes," Gu Shan admitted. "That skill allows me to create a phantom image." "Yes, it's that figure. I've seen it in a flash before," Xie Daoling replied. Gu Shan was startled. She recalled that entity. It was a gigantic humanoid monster. Its face was faintly recognizable as a human face, but its body was a long snake's. Or perhaps it wasn't a snake's body, but rather a dragon's? Xie Daoling continued. "After I discovered this, I went to look at the jade tag that I used to practice this technique in the past, wanted to find out where this entity came from. Unfortunately, the martial arts jade tag didn't contain this divine skill. Not even a single word about it for some reason." Gu Shan felt a chill down her spine and couldn't help but ask, "Could it be that you remembered wrongly and it wasn't that jade tag, but another jade tag?" "I couldn't be," Xie Daoling lowered her gaze and muttered. "It wasn't until I looked through that jade tag again that I remembered that this unbreakable mountain range was something I derived and deduced myself." Gu Shan froze. Xie Daoling continued. "At the time, I was 19 years old. My sect had just been destroyed not too long ago, so I was wandering around by myself. One day, I killed a martial cultivator with ill intentions and obtained a martial scripture from him. As I looked through it, I deduced this divine skill. At the time, I was also scared and knew that something was wrong, so I sealed this part of my memories. It wasn't until I actively went to look for this part of my memories that I found the truth." Gu Shan tried his best to remain calm and asked, "Shifu, what about the Forgetting River?" "It was also something that I deduced myself, or rather, It was a skill that I comprehended, Xie Dao Ling admitted. When 21 years old, Gu Qingshan gasped. He had seen too many things in his life, but he had never even heard of someone like Xie Dao Ling. Xie Dao Ling continued. Compared to the projection of unbreakable mountain range, the ferryman of the forgetting river was an entity that I could communicate with. Every time I fought, she would always ask me how much vitality I had to expend. So I eventually asked her what exactly was going on with me. Gu Qingshan immediately asked, "What did she say?" She never told me anything, but there was one time when I couldn't keep pestering her, so she sighed and said that I was pitiful. Gu Qingshan felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. This sentence had always been stuck in his mind, never forgotten. Back in the giant corpse world, the monster that I had to use everything I had to kill with the Earth Sword also said the same thing to me. It said that I was pitiful. Pitiful? Why is it pitiful? A deep sense of fear gripped Gu Qingshan's heart. He suddenly stood up and paced back and forth in the hall. "Disciple, what's the matter?" Xie Dao Ling asked. Gu Qingshan forced a smile. "It's nothing. I'm just thinking about what kind of deity that ferryman of the forgetting river was. The Huangquan fragment world that was ruled by the Wraith realm most likely didn't have such a deity. She was too powerful. The Wraith realm might not be able to deal with her, which means she must belong to an unknown Huangquan fragment world. Why did she say that Xie Dao Ling was pitiful? What does she know? Is there a connection between Shifu's matter and my encounter with that monster?" Gu Qingshan felt like his head was about to explode from thinking so much. Xie Dao Ling scowled. "I've performed a few divinations to see if there's a way to come into contact with these things in the dream. What were the results?" Gu Qingshan asked. "The results all pointed to this Sumru Lord realm tribulation. As you know, I originally didn't need to face this tribulation, but since I can obtain some information during the tribulation, as well as help our world accumulate Dao scriptures, I decided to come." Gu Qingshan stopped. "Seems like I'll have to do everything I can this time. This might be Xie Dao Ling's matter, but it might also be my matter." Xie Dao Ling continued. "Ever since the heaven-supporting pillar broke, both the Mahesvara King realm tribulation and the Sumru Lord realm tribulation have become even more dangerous, so I'm actually not too confident. Qingshan, you can't be careless either. I'll go take a look around later," Gu Qingshan replied. "Very well. This isn't a place that can be easily reached. Only those who have faced their tribulations can come here. Take a look around. Maybe you'll find something." Xie Dao Ling's tone suddenly became light and said, "When will you be able to return to the sect?" "Xiao and the others are all missing you," Gu Qingshan replied. "I've been a bit busy lately. I'll go back to see them after I'm done." He suddenly recalled something and asked, "Shifu, are you currently at Mahesvara King realm?" "I am," Xie Dao Ling replied. Gu Qingshan carefully asked, "The legends say that the Mahesvara King has 48 dependents. What's with these 48 dependents?" Xie Dao Ling replied with an got down from her chair, clasped her hands behind her back, and walked in front of Gu Qingshan. She reached her hand out, but Gu Qingshan was too tall. With her current height, she couldn't even reach Gu Qingshan's forehead. Xie Dao Ling glared at him and said, "Lower your head." Gu Qingshan lowered his head. Xie Dao Ling tapped his forehead with her finger, then turned around and sat down on her chair. Chapter 1191. When Xie Dao Ling pointed her finger in between Gu Qingshan's eyebrows, a message appeared in Gu Qingshan's inner sight. At the same time, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI, frowny face from Mahesvara King realm onwards. The laws of heaven and earth would begin to reciprocate to the cultivator. Xie Dao Ling is Mahesvara King realm cultivator. According to the laws of heaven and earth, her multiple thaumaturgy has been awakened. She can have a total of 48 dependents. You've obtained a chance to become Xie Dao Ling's dependent. Are you willing to become her dependent? "I am," Gu Qingshan replied. "Regardless of who tries to harm me, Shifu would never harm me." Lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI, frowny face. You have become Xie Dao Ling's dependent. You may choose a thaumaturgy, technique, skill, or any other manifestation method of their power and share it with Xie Dao Ling. Attention! The ability you share must belong to a cultivation type ability. Attention! Xie Daoling must expend her own spirit energy to use this ability. Your spirit energy will not be deducted. Attention! Xie Daoling's use of this ability will not affect your ability to use it. Description: Mahesvara King may choose one ability from the 48 dependents for his own use every 3 days. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but be surprised. In the past, every time a cultivator advanced, they would have to be struck by lightning. When they finally reached a higher realm, they would have to face Tribulation Realm and be constantly on edge. After Tribulation Realm, Void Revolution Realm, they would have to face the tribulations of earth, water, fire, and wind, followed by the Yama Heavenly King's forceful peace. After going through all of these, the laws of heaven and earth changed their attitude. 48 dependents, that means 48 different abilities. She could use one ability every 3 days. For a cultivator, this would be an unimaginable boost. Gu Qingshan immediately thought about what kind of ability she should share with Shifu. Since it must be a cultivation-type ability, my strongest ability would be Rahu's Eclipse of Sun and Moon. Unfortunately, Shifu's weapon is a whip, not a sword, so it would be very inconvenient to use this ability. I'm a sword cultivator, and almost all of my skills are with the sword, so what else can I give to Shifu? While he was thinking, Xie Daoling smiled and said, "Don't worry about it, just transmit any spell or technique to me through your dependent technique. After all, you're a sword cultivator," she continued. "I've actually included Xiao Lu, Xiao Xiao, Qing Rou, and Wan Air as my dependents. This way I can keep track of your situation at all times. As for techniques and spells, that's secondary." Gu Qingshan asked, "How did you know about our situation? If a dependent is heavily injured or killed, I will lose the dependent's ability," Xie Daoling replied. Gu Qingshan nodded, but she was still thinking carefully. Shifting Shadows was not bad. Awakening Dream was not bad either. In terms of movement techniques, Shirzun already has the ability to shrink the ground to inches. In battle, Shifu was strong enough, and she used a long whip. Gu Qingshan continued to think. Awakening Dream was a lightning thaumaturgy that he had perfected after many advancements. This thaumaturgy was a cultivation-type thaumaturgy that he obtained through a war god quest, so it was extremely powerful. I can easily imagine Xie Daoling wielding a whip covered in lightning and striking the enemy with his sha. The enemy would be struck by Awakening Dream and wouldn't be able to move. Sha, sha, sha. Wouldn't that mean I'll be whipped until I die? That's a good idea. Having made up her mind, Gu Qingshan closed her eyes and transmitted her lightning thaumaturgy. This was a miraculous feeling, as if the laws of reality had entered my mind, copied a certain power, and transmitted it to the other party. At first, Xie Daoling didn't mind and only smiled. But very quickly, she seemed to have sensed something and opened her mouth slightly. "Qingshan, your lightning thaumaturgy has evolved to this level. How rare. It should be very useful for restraining the enemy." Saying so, she took out a long whip. Z. The whip gave off a blue-white glow of lightning. Xie Daoling looked at the lightning and raised the whip. Sha-boom! A deafening explosion resounded. The entire palace was filled with dust, as if a bolt of lightning had descended. Xie Daoling praised, "What a useful lightning thaumaturgy." Gu Qingshan, he had already started to mourn for Xie Daoling's future enemy. This had already gone beyond the realm of being whipped. This is basically forcing someone to face a lightning tribulation. Gu Qingshan chuckled. He was quite happy to be able to help Shifu a bit more. Xie Daoling put the whip away, took out a talisman, and gave it to Gu Qingshan. Lines of glowing text appeared on the war god, UI, frowny face attention. This talisman is currently activating multiple dependence conversations. Gu Qingshan sensed several inner sights in his thought sea. One of them was Xie Daoling's, the others were also familiar. All of a sudden, a joyful female voice called out, "Third brother? Is that you, third brother?" Gu Qingshan was surprised. Xiao. "Ah, it's me. Did third brother meet Shifu?" Xiao asked. Before Gu Qingshan could answer, Wan Air's voice followed. "Wait a minute. Could it be you're breaking through to Mahesvara King Realm?" "That's right. I just happened to meet Shifu. One air, long time no see. Gu Qingshan smiled and replied. Everyone on the other side exclaimed in shock. Mahesvara, King Realm. Shifu is a monster, but third brother is also the same. How are we supposed to live like this? All of a sudden, one of the inner sights disappeared. Gu Qingshan worriedly asked, Who was it? Who left? Qing Ro's gentle voice came again. Don't worry, senior brother. It's just that second brother couldn't keep his face, so he temporarily cut off his inner sight. Second brother, Qin Xiaolu. Gu Qingshan held back his laughter and asked, What realm is he at right now? The three girls answer at the same time, Tribulation Realm, Tribulation Realm. That's a lot of tribulations. Help me tell him to be careful, Gu Qingshan sighed emotionally. It's fine, Xiao replied. Third brother, you don't know this, but second brother has never killed anyone. He'll be fine. That's right, he's never won against cultivators from other sects. We're always the ones to save him. One heir followed up. After chatting for a bit more, everyone knew that Xiet Daoling and Gu Qingshan were still in the middle of their tribulation, so they didn't say much and left. Have our talisman skills reached this level? Gu Qingshan asked. Xiet Daoling smiled and shook her head. This is the highest grade of voice talismans. There are only a few of them. Keep this one safe. Gu Qingshan carefully put the talisman away. How is it? Do you miss them a lot? Xie Daoling asked. Yeah, those days of cultivation really make me want to go back, Gu Qingshan replied. Unfortunately, I can't go back. Gu Qingshan was curious and asked, Shifu, the Mahesvara king has 48 dependents, while the Sumer Lord has 120 followers. What do you mean by follower? Xie Daoling replied. Follower means to follow the body like a shadow. It's also a multi-person thaumaturgy. The Sumer Lord can assign 120 followers as long as he summons them. They can travel through space-time to appear in front of the Sumer Lord and fight together, so that's how it is. Gu Qingshan nodded. This is a bit similar to summoning, but it has more advantages than summoning. Travel through space-time, same race. These 2 points alone are superior to normal summoning techniques. Gu Qingshan stood up and said goodbye to Xie Daoling. Shifu, I'm going out for a walk to see if I could get any information. Use the dependent thaumaturgy to contact me if anything happens. All right, go ahead. I need to think about tomorrow's matters, Xie Daoling said. Gu Qingshan bowed and left the hall. He went out onto the street. The entire city was made up of traditional cultivation-type buildings, decorated in an antique style and had a unique sense of beauty. Unfortunately, there was no one on the streets at night. There were no longer any living beings in this world. Gu Qingshan glanced at the towering heaven-reaching pillar and silently pondered. There's no need to climb the heaven-reaching pillar in a hurry, because when Shifu faces her tribulation, everyone will have to climb this pillar. All of a sudden, a burst of fireworks appeared in the night sky. Gu Qingshan turned to look, only to see fireworks rising to the sky, blossoming, then falling like a shower of stars. From the direction, they're all outside the city walls, Gu Qingshan muttered, then recalled something else. Everyone reminded him not to stay outside the city at night. He didn't have time to ask about it before, but now there are fireworks outside the city. Very well, since I'm going to check the situation, I might as well go up to the city walls and see what's going on. Gu Qingshan lightly tapped the ground with his foot, turned into a blurred image, and flew out of the city. A few moments later, he stood on top of the city walls. At this point, there were already 2 to 3 cultivators standing guard on top of the city walls, looking outside. Gu Qingshan came forward and greeted them. While they were talking, one of the cultivators suddenly said, "Look, it's coming." Everyone turned to look outside. A transparent membrane slowly manifested outside the city walls, covering the sky and a wilderness outside of Heaven Pillar City. Everyone silently waited. All of a sudden, an illusory world descended. People flowed like a tidal wave. Endless carriages, bright lights, all living things were flourishing. The entire world seemed to have been resurrected, displaying the prosperity of a long time ago. People were bustling with activity. Some were doing business and haggling. Some were greeting each other. Some were playing finger-guessing games in the tavern, and some were quarreling on the street. Some immediately took out their armor, and started fighting on the street. There were all kinds of people. Gu Shan silently stared at the people dressed in ancient attire. He found that he couldn't hear anything. Fireworks were exploding in the sky, illuminating the darkness. An illusionary dragon slowly manifested, circling in the night sky. Gu Shan tilted his head and looked in another direction. On the other side of the city walls, a transparent barrier silently manifested. This barrier was still connecting heaven and earth, separating the bustling human world from the outside world. Another world manifested. Jagged, grotesque rocks. Pale green flames reached all the way to the sky. On the barren land, countless wraiths rampaged, fighting, killing, and devouring the bodies of the defeated. Even further away, another transparent barrier manifested. A new illusory world manifested itself in front of the cultivator's eyes. More and more worlds appeared, dazzling everyone's eyes. The cultivators silently watched from the top of the city walls. All of a sudden, a beautiful woman flew out from the crowd of people in the night market and arrived outside the city walls. She stuck close to the thin barrier and smiled. "Fellow Tao seekers, please come and have a chat." The cultivator stood still. Someone reminded her in a low voice. "Remember, do not go out. You won't be able to return if you do another person's side." "Last time, fellow Tao seeker Huang." No one said anything else. To be able to cultivate to Yama King Realm, everyone here was a cultivator who was one in a million, having gone through many trials and tribulations, having seen all sorts of strange things. But the scene in front of them still caused them to feel a chill. Seeing how cautious everyone was, Gu Shan sent her inner sight and her thought see and lightly wrapped it around the Devil King Warden Rod. The Devil King Warden Rod didn't budge. Seems like this woman isn't a dead soul. If she isn't a dead soul, then what are these entities? Gu Shan looked at the woman and muttered, "How interesting." Chapter 1192. Seeing that no one spoke, the woman stopped smiling and turned to leave. Everyone silently watched as she once again flew into the bustling market, stood in front of a purple-clothed man with a pair of horns on his head, and reported in a low voice. Gu Shan suddenly asked, "Fellow Tao seekers, may I ask which fellow Tao seeker Huang you were talking about just now was?" All the cultivators looked at a single person. The man replied, "Fellow Tao seeker Huang came from my cultivation world. He was the one who came to face his Sumru Lord Realm tribulation last time. Where is he? Did he die during his tribulation?" Gu Shan asked, "How should I say this? Last time we were here to protect him during his tribulation, and then, the cultivator had a fearful expression on his face as he pointed towards the night market. Gu Shan followed the direction he was pointing, only to see a man standing at a corner of the night market. Next to him was a table and a stove. The man was kneading dough, sweating profusely as he shouted something. Unfortunately, other than the woman just now, no one else's voice could be heard, so Gu Shan couldn't hear what he was shouting either. The man lifted the dough, shook it on the chopping board, stretched it out, then stuck it into the stove and stuck it on the wall. So he was making xiaobing. Fellow Tao seeker Huang was confident in his cultivation, but as soon as he was invited into that world, he lost all of his strength and died on the spot, a cultivator explained. "We were just thinking about how to retrieve his body, but he suddenly stood up, went to a corner of the night market and began to sell xiaobing." Another cultivator sighed and said, "You didn't think of a way to wake him up?" Gu Shan asked. "We've tried everything, but he seems to have turned into a completely different person," the cultivator replied. Gu Shan looked at the man. Emazvara King, Realm Cultivator, suddenly died, then came back to life. He forgot everything and only sold xiaobing in the night market. That can't be right. He's already dead. Not even his soul is here. Otherwise, the Devil King Warden Rod would have connected the dead to Gu Shan's inner sight. Then, does this person still remember his previous identity? Gu Shan glanced at the human night market, then at the other worlds that were isolated by the barrier. The cultivation world, the wraith world, the technological world, the Azura world, the magic world, the savage world, the martial world, the beast king world, the card world, the angel world, the purgatory world, the wood world, the deep sea world, the lifeless world, the bewildering nest world, the heavenly immortal world, the myriad spirit world, the primordial world, the sound of light world, the ruins world, the artifact spirit world, the molten fire world, the silent world, the dark world, and so on and so forth. Gu Qingshan looked at it for a while, but couldn't find any clues. In each world, the behavior of the living beings was consistent with their race's origins. This was not good, Gu Qingshan pondered. According to the other cultivators, in the last few thousand years, no one had ever crossed the Mount Sumeru tribulation. This time, it was Xie Daoling's turn to face her tribulation. Fortunately, Master wasn't an arrogant person, and he never pretended to have a high cultivation base. However, if he were to encounter such a situation on the heavenly pillar, no, I need to learn more about this world. It might be helpful for me to face my tribulation. While Gu Qingshan was thinking, the woman once again flew up from the night market and appeared in front of everyone. Through the barrier, she smiled and asked, "Everyone, do you have any business deals you want to make?" The cultivators all went silent. When Gu Qingshan was about to speak, the cultivator from before pulled on Gu Qingshan's sleeve and kindly told her, "Don't make any deals with them. Is it dangerous?" Gu Qingshan asked. The cultivator replied, "It's not that dangerous. It's just that they always take out some low-value items to exchange for our treasures. I'm afraid no one would be willing to make such a deal." Gu Qingshan pondered briefly, tapped her inventory bag, and took out a pile of spirit stones. He asked the woman, 3,000 spirit stones, what can I get from you?" Seeing the spirit stones, the woman's eyes glowed and replied, "Please wait a moment. Fellow Tao Seeker." She turned around, took a basket, walked around the night market, took a few items from each stall, and put them into the basket, then flew back. "Please take a look, fellow Tao Seeker. You can pick anything you want from me for 3,000 spirit stones." Gu Qingshan looked at the basket. There were some snacks, water, cantaloupe leaf fans, mooncakes, and other common things in the basket. Gu Qingshan thought of something and asked, "Can I have a xiaobing?" "Sure." The woman nodded, flew back into the night market, and found the cultivator named Huang. The cultivator named Huang took out a xiaobing and gave it to the woman. The woman flew back, stuck close to the barrier, and looked at Gu Qingshan. "Give me the xiaobing." Gu Qingshan threw the spirit stones out. As the spirit stones landed on the barrier, the woman used a hand seal to put them away. The woman then used another hand seal to give her the xiaobing. Gu Qingshan received the xiaobing. The xiaobing was still warm, giving off steam as if it had just come out of the oven. "Fellow Tao Seeker, is there anything else you need?" the woman asked expectantly. "Nothing, but there's something else. What exactly are you people? Where did you come from?" Gu Qingshan asked. The woman shook her head. "I don't know." Saying so, she took the spirit stones, flew back into the night market, and disappeared without a trace. Gu Qingshan felt a bit regretful. A line of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. "Frowny face, you've used the iris technique. Time recollection. Due to the obstruction of the world barrier, your spell failed." Time recollection. Back then, Lin was much more powerful than Gu Qingshan, but she was still affected by this world technique. But since they were separated by two worlds, this technique couldn't be performed. Then there's no other way. Gu Qingshan weighed the xiaobing in her hand, then passed it to the cultivators behind her. "Fellow Tao Seeker, Huang's world must have its own rules and etiquette. Please take a look and see if fellow Tao Seeker Huang has set up a secret code here," he told everyone. The cultivators were surprised. A few moments later, the xiaobing was passed around in everyone's hands, then returned to Gu Qingshan's hand. Everyone was a bit dejected. A xiaobing was still a xiaobing. There wasn't a single piece of information hidden inside, nor were there any techniques or secret codes. "It seems fellow Tao Seeker Huang has truly died," someone sighed. Everyone nodded. Gu Qingshan thought briefly. There really wasn't any other information. Their first attempt at probing had failed. "Fellow Tao Seeker, do the other worlds also do business?" Gu Qingshan asked. A cultivator replied, "They do. but they're all about the same as before. It's impossible to exchange for anything useful from them. Gu Qing nodded. Then I'll go take a look. The other cultivator tried to convince her. They won't tell us what's going on here. Another cultivator followed up. That's right, we've tried probing them before, but they'll only give us useless things. They might not even know what's going on. All right, I'll take a look around and take a stroll, saying so. Gu Qing followed the path on the city wall towards the east. He quickly went past the border between the two barriers. The next world on the other side of the city wall was no longer the human world, but the lava world. The lava world didn't have any civilization, only a few ignorant primitive flame spirits. Gu Qing went past this world and continued to walk along the city wall. Ahead of him was the magic-type world. He chose a normal magic card and exchanged it for a memory stone from Mage. It was said that this memory stone recorded some ancient secrets of the magic-type world. Gu Qing took the memory stone and followed the mage's instructions to slowly read the contents inside. Lord A is Lord B's illegitimate son. Lord B's wife is Lord C's lover. Lord C and Lord D are actually siblings. Sure enough, ancient secrets. Just as the cultivator said, this thing didn't explain where the magic-type world came from or why it appeared in Heaven Pillar World. Gu Qing silently put the memory stone away and continued forward. After going through the magic-type world, the savage world, the silent world, he arrived at the Wraith Realm. Thinking of something, Gu Qing suddenly stopped. While he was still, a great wraith slowly flew in front of him and invited him into the Wraith Realm. Gu Qing shook his head, indicating that he wouldn't go in, as he only wanted to do business. The great wraith then ran back, brought back a few severed limbs, and neatly arranged them in front of Gu Qing. This one is delicious. This one is also delicious. The one next to it is delicious. The great wraith drooled as he introduced his goods. Gu Qing crouched down, looked at the severed limbs with interest through the barrier. Are there any organs? He asked. The wraith was impressed and nodded. I didn't think you'd be a gourmet. There are. It turned around to prepare. Wait a minute. I want to eat something fresh. Can you give me a living wraith? Gu Qing asked. Not a living one. A living one can't pass through the barrier. The wraith shook his head. Hearing that, Gu Qing felt a bit regretful. He took out a few plates of spirit cooking and placed them on the ground. My food contains various types of energy. I'll trade it with you. I said, not a living one. The wraith replied. Then how about this? Find me the freshest head from your food reserves. The fresher, the better, Gu Qing said. The great wraith looked down at Gu Qing spirit cooking and shook his head. I'll have to try your food. Gu Qing directly handed him a plate. The wraith chanted an incantation, received the plate, and poured everything into his mouth. The taste is a bit strange, but it does contain a lot of energy, the wraith said with satisfaction. Gu Qing tapped her inventory bag, took out another 5 plates of spirit cooking, and placed them all on the ground. Now, please find me a head, Gu Qing said. The fresher the better, the wraith asked. Yes, not only does it have to be fresh, but it also has to live long enough. That way, I'll pay you more, Gu Qing replied. The great wraith nodded, turned around, and left. A few moments later, it grabbed an old wraith and came in front of Gu Qing. The old wraith kept spitting out green flames to attack the great wraith. The great wraith directly broke its head, passed through the barrier, and gave the head to Gu Qing. Fresh enough, the great wraith spat out. Gu Qing sighed and said, Now I know what a real wraith is. He gave the other party the spirit cooking, then received the old wraith's head from it. Through inner sight, Gu Qing could sense that this head's life had already passed away. But the head didn't completely stop working. At least the wraith's fangs were still opening and closing, trying to bite his hand. Gu Qing carefully held the head so that the head's eyes were facing him. I hope I can make it in time. Gu Qing silently prayed. Then, time recollection, activate. In a split second, the world in front of Gu Qing completely collapsed, revealing nothing but emptiness. The emptiness only existed for a split second. A second later, another world abruptly unfolded from the void of space and appeared in front of Gu Shan. Heaven and earth collapsed. Clouds of smoke rose to the sky. The world was quickly collapsing. Countless screams of pain. The fleeing wraiths all fell to the ground one by one, exploding into a mist of blood. From the sky, a cold female voice resounded. The samsara world is only so. Gu Shan looked up. He saw a woman of indescribable beauty. Behind her, countless stars were evolving, being born and destroyed, displaying her divine might and power. Gu Shan's heart skipped a beat. At the sacred ground of the four-pillar gods, he had seen the past of the inner plane, as well as this woman. Indeed, she was the jade of infinite worlds, the master of the Star River, the blessed one of the inner plane, the grand empress of the pantheon, Renedal. Chapter 1193. Gu Shan looked up at the pantheon empress in the sky. The world was slowly being destroyed. Everything was being destroyed. All the wraiths were being slaughtered. Stop, Gu Shan said. The shattered earth suddenly stopped. The clouds in the sky stopped moving. The wraith's body was like a blooming flower of blood that hadn't completely exploded yet. This wasn't time stopping. Gu Shan was simply controlling the time recollection technique to stop the events of the past at a certain point so that he could carefully observe them. He walked in front of one of the wraiths and carefully sensed it. He then took to the sky and circled around the entire world. Finally, he returned. That's enough, he said. The world once again fell into destruction and collapse. Gradually, the entire world turned into sand and dust that scattered into the space vortex. Renedal casually glanced at this world. Her gaze was focused on Gu Shan. Gu Shan immediately realized that he was now the old wraith. So there were still fish that escaped the net. Renedal raised one of her long, slender fingers and lightly tapped it. Darkness descended. Everything stopped at this point. Gu Shan exited from the time recollection technique. He realized that he was holding the evil spirit's head in his hands. His back was covered in a layer of cold sweat, and he could not help but gasp for breath. While inside the barrier, the great wraith had only just turned around and took its first step. Time. Only a split second had passed. Gu Shan dropped the head and sat down on the cold stone floor. He took out a gourd of spirit liquor and drank it all to calm himself down. It wasn't because of anything else, but because the power Renedal exuded was too terrifying. Just by looking at that scene, Gu Shan felt his soul being slightly wounded. He closed his eyes and went through everything he had just seen in his mind. Wait, Gu Shan muttered. The evil spirits in that world were too weak. Gu Shan had run into those mass fellows. Those fellows had already gathered 70% of the Wraith Realm's fragments, and even a mere servant was equipped with an incredibly powerful causality weapon. On the other hand, Renedal did not encounter any decent resistance throughout the entire process of destroying the world. From this, it could be deduced that the Wraith Realm she destroyed was only a fragment of the Wraith Realm. Fragment world. Gu Shan's gaze fell on the evil ghost's head not far away. This was strange. This guy should already be dead. The Wraith Fragment world had also been destroyed. Why would a Wraith Fragment world suddenly appear? This world only appeared at night. It thirsted for all living beings, thirsted for transactions, using bad things to exchange for powerful things. Gu Shan waved his hand, and the head flew back into his hand. What exactly are you? He asked softly. The Wraith's eyes were wide open. Look at him. Motionless. Gu Shan lowered her head and continued to think. A destroyed world. It had once again manifested itself, appearing every night in Heaven Pillar World. There were many such worlds in the entire Heaven Pillar World. What exactly are they? All of a sudden, Gu Shan's left eyelid twitched. It was a world technique that was hidden inside his eye. There were two remnant world spirits there. They moved a bit, as if to signal something. Gu Shan's mind flickered and abruptly stood up. So that's what it was. I understand now. He looked at the countless grotesque worlds outside the city wall, feeling an indescribable sense of shock and sorrow. Following his will, a line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI frowny face during the previous ritual of the Earth God. You had used up all of your prayers, unable to perform a second sacrificial dance here. Gu Shan didn't give up. He began to clap his hands, stomping his feet, lightly humming a tune. Although he didn't have any prayers, sacrificial dance was still a sacrificial dance. It should be enough to show his identity. Sure enough, as he swayed, an indescribable entity from the void of space resonated with him. Another line of glowing text appeared on the war god UI, frowny face attention. You're the host of the dance of the Earth God. Under the witness of a certain entity, you have made a promise with the destroyed worlds of the past to complete the sacrificial dance. You have the blessings of the past worlds, and now, they who are hiding in Heaven Pillar World have sensed your identity. They have allowed you to see the truth of everything. Instantly, all the worlds in Heaven Pillar City disappeared. Another scene appeared in front of Gu Shan's eyes. Broken entities. Their bodies were large, their limbs long and slender. They had no faces similar to humans. They were the remnant souls of their worlds. They were all worlds that had been destroyed by Reneedle, leaving only a remnant of their souls that hid in Heaven Pillar World. They only dared to appear at night, using their power to connect with one another, desiring to obtain all power. Gu Shan understood. He muttered, "That's why you actually hoped for living beings to enter your worlds to prolong your existence. You hope to exchange undesirable things for powerful treasures to help you obtain a bit of power. You gathered here to stay warm, correct?" The gigantic entities all nodded. They turned into countless sprites of light that danced around Gu Shan. They seemed to be in a hurry to express something, from probing to contact, then to mutual understanding. And now, the attitude of the worlds had become a bit more intimate. "Don't be hasty," Gu Shan's voice slowed down and asked. "What exactly is it? Tell me slowly." All the sprites of light gathered together and hovered by his ear, slowly uttering a few words. "Hurry, and outside there's a dragon. Wait a minute." "When you say outside, do you mean Heaven Pillar World?" Gu Shan asked. All the sprites of light flew up, gathered in front of him, and formed a screen of light. Scenes slowly appeared on the screen. Legends say that it possessed a gigantic body, riding the clouds, lightning flashing, thunder rumbling. Every kind of majestic presence. One couldn't help but feel the urge to worship it. An azure dragon. It circled around Heaven Pillar World, circling back and forth. Gu Shan looked at the azure dragon. Gu Shan could clearly see each of its scales, each strand of its whiskers, even its expression. But Gu Shan couldn't sense it all. It wasn't just him. None of the cultivators here, not even Shifu, could sense it. Is this one of its abilities? The azure dragon had retracted all of its presence and was silently cruising through the space vortex. It was like a calm and graceful, cold-blooded assassin, silently waiting for its chance to strike. Gu Shan felt a chill crawling up his spine. The remnant souls' voices resounded again. "At dawn, we scatter. The barrier is gone. It will come. Kill us all." Gu Shan understood. At night, the remnant souls of countless worlds would gather together to form a barrier that could take away the lives of living beings, so the azure dragon couldn't enter this world. At dawn, the remnant souls of the worlds would all go into hiding. At that time, the azure dragon wouldn't have to worry about anything. How strong could a dragon be? Back in Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace, the yellow dragon's remnant soul only glanced at him once and he died. Even though Gu Shan's strength was much stronger than before, he still felt a lingering sense of fear whenever he recalled what happened back then. The yellow dragon's remnant soul was already that powerful. This time, Gu Shan would have to face a complete azure dragon. "Thank you. I'll have to inform Shifu right away. We're going to climb the heaven-supporting pillar tonight." Gu Shan muttered. He took out all the spirit stones he had and tossed them outside the city. "I didn't bring a lot of items with energy. These spirit stones are the ones with the most energy, about a few 100,000 of them. I'll give them all to you," Gu Shan said. 700,000 spirit stones disappeared as soon as they were tossed out. "Thank you." A grateful voice resounded from the void of space. Gu Shan shook his head. No need. Take care. I'll protect Shifu while she faces her tribulation. I'll come back to chat with you when I have time. As he was about to leave, some of the sprites of light flew out and hovered in front of him. These sprites of light surrounded him and began to rotate at high speed. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Frowny face, numerous remnant souls of the cultivation world wish to impart the most advanced knowledge of their civilization to you. They have begun to connect to your thought sea. Please prepare to receive the knowledge. Chapter 1194. Gu Shan stood still. From other people's point of view, he was simply blanking out. But if he was accepted by the world fragments, he would see a completely different scene. Countless sprites of light were circling around Gu Shan, constantly giving off faint white light that entered between Gu Shan's eyebrows. Gu Shan remained in a state of no thought, silently receiving the knowledge of the various cultivation-type worlds. Normally, cultivators would transmit knowledge through verbal communication, J-tags, and other methods. But through the transfer of knowledge between worlds, they would directly convert the knowledge that they deemed useful into enlightenment and infuse it into Gu Shan's thought sea. This so-called enlightenment was akin to seeing the moon bloom and the flowers bloom. It was natural, without the need to think or ponder over it. One would be able to fully understand the principles behind it. And because Gu Shan was a sword cultivator, the amount of swordsmanship knowledge he received from the various cultivation-type world fragments was also a lot higher. There were also other knowledge related to the elements, martial arts, secret arts, treasures, divination, talismans, formations, spirit cooking, smithing, pills, as well as the best of the best were all taught to Gu Shan. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Gu Shan opened his eyes. Swordsmanship, he murmured softly. In truth, some of the cultivation-type worlds among the world fragments were real worlds, not worlds created from the void of space, so they all had a complete Tao inheritance and profound swordsmanship. Frankly speaking, the path of a sword cultivator had always been difficult. Those who managed to become a sword saint were extremely rare, not to mention those who managed to reach solitary sword realm and then break through to sword god. Even in the cultivation worlds, there weren't a lot of people like that. Perhaps there were some sword cultivators who were extremely powerful, had a profound realm, and were practically invincible in the entire world, but ignoring the realm of cultivation. In terms of swordsmanship alone, they most likely hadn't reached the realm of sword god. The will of the world had directly converted the cultivation of the only two sword god powerhouses into enlightenment and imparted it to Gu Shan. Comprehending these swordsmanship through the method of enlightenment, Gu Shan's horizons were greatly broadened. Many of his thoughts that he hadn't been able to solve were confirmed, as well as a lot of problems that required practice and killing were also solved. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Your swordsmanship is rapidly improving. In the following time, you can enter or leave the state of enlightenment at any time. When you enter the state of enlightenment, the knowledge hidden in your sea of knowledge will become your own. Reminder: once you have gained enough swordsmanship knowledge, you will be able to unlock the enemy-killing swordsmanship and learn the mysteries of the way of the sword within. Gu Shan immediately understood. The enemy-killing sword technique was a sword technique that Xie Guhong truly chose from the bygone era humanity's inheritance, which was later passed on to him. When he left the Age of Old, the Earth Creator left a lot of things in that era to prevent Gu Shan from running into any problems while traveling through the River of Time. The enemy-killing sword technique was hidden inside the gold coin and brought back with it by Gu Shan. After the Fairy of Time fused the silver star into the gold coin to form the complete coin of the Earth, the enemy-killing sword technique was placed inside Gu Shan's mind. Once his swordsmanship reached a certain level, he would be able to unlock this sword technique and learn its contents. Other than that, through enlightenment, Gu Shan also noticed something interesting: the issue of cultivation realms. Compared to other worlds, cultivators in cultivation-type worlds often had to face heaven's tribulations. There were a total of 21 stages, starting from chi refinement all the way to Sumeru Lord. The cultivators were not the only ones who found this a headache. The cultivators from other worlds also found this a headache when dealing with the cultivators from other worlds. Because regardless of whether it was communication or reception, each world had their own set of standards and specifications. But because there were so many realms of cultivators, even the worlds that roughly divided their strength felt a headache. When so many technological, magic-type, savage, and other worlds complained too much, the cultivation world also did some self-reflection. Finally, after much discussion, they came to a decision that couldn't be changed. Because before the Yama King tribulation, cultivators were constantly filtered by the laws of the world. But starting from Yama King or realm, every realm would be marked by the laws of the world. For example, Mahesvara King had 48 dependents, Sumeru Lord had 120 followers, Star River Saints could manifest void seeds and manifest star treasure trees. These realms represented the difference between cultivators and other professions. Regardless of whether or not other professions were used to it, cultivators would never change. Gu Qingshan exited his state of enlightenment. Being able to improve his swordsmanship was a good thing, but he had more important things to do right now. Everyone, he turned to the world fragments and asked, "Do you know why the Azure Dragon came to kill all the cultivators of this world?" The world fragments slowly fluttered and whispered in his ears. Killing intent, seething. Gu Qingshan went silent. He had never seen the Azure Dragon before, nor could he imagine why it would want to kill the cultivators of this world. However, he had once summoned the 4 divine beasts of Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace to support him in the age of old, so he had seen the yellow dragon's true form. That dragon's strength should be close to Paragon Realm. When the divine race created all things, they definitely wouldn't allow any species to be stronger than themselves, so the yellow dragon's strength wasn't enough to represent the true dragon race. The Azure Dragon. He had seen it once just now. Although it wasn't as powerful as Renedal, it was still enough to make Gu Qingshan feel an intense sense of danger. Gu Qingshan pondered, then asked, "Do you know where it came from?" The whispers of the world resounded again. Wraith presence. Gu Qingshan understood everything. So it came to kill me. He went silent. The Wraith realm had fused with 70% of the Wraith realm's fragments, so the living beings of this world had become unimaginably powerful. Even a mere servant was equipped with a mask that was guaranteed to hit, as well as a pair of causality law golden chopsticks. And this servant dared to directly persuade a Yama King, realm sword cultivator, to surrender. If that's the case, what about the Wraith Realm's dragon? Just how powerful is it? Gu Qingshan went silent for a long time without saying anything. Xie Daoling was currently facing her tribulation. This Sumeru Lord Realm tribulation was extremely dangerous to begin with, and it had been many years since she last successfully faced it. Although Xie Daoling's strength wasn't something that normal cultivators of the same realm could compare to. But now, it wasn't just the Sumeru Lord Realm tribulation. There was also the Azure Dragon. Even Shifu couldn't detect the hidden Azure Dragon. Gu Qingshan sighed emotionally. Although the pillar to heaven was broken, it wasn't that hard to climb. The real hard part would be after reaching Mount Sumeru. But even if she reached Mount Sumeru, as long as I'm here, the Azure Dragon would still follow the pillar to heaven. At that time, not only would Shifu have to face the Sumeru Lord Realm tribulation, but he would also have to face the Azure Dragon. Even if we take a step back, if I run into danger, would Shifu really leave me behind? Gu Qingshan was a bit annoyed. Who would have thought that I would one day drag Shifu down? Slapping his inventory bag, he took out everything he had. All of his technological products, the Strife Zone's coins, countless card fragments, all of his cultivation-type resources, as well as a few other spoils of war were all thrown into the air. As soon as they left his hand, they slowly disappeared. The grateful voices of the world fragments resounded from the void of space. Thank you, Gu Qingshan replied. You're welcome. I have something I need to trouble you with, but I don't know if you can do it or not. What is it? The world fragments asked. It's very simple, a small matter. Gu Qingshan smiled. At another location, Xie Daoling was meditating in the palace. Strange, why do I feel a bit uneasy? She opened her eyes and muttered. Rumble, rumble. The ground began to tremble. Xie Daoling took out a few coins and was about to perform a divination when Gu Qingshan came in from outside. Shifu, I have something to report. Gu Qingshan spoke with a serious expression. Since her spirit sense was interrupted, Xie Daoling had no choice but to put the coins away and asked, What is it? There's an issue with this world, Gu Qingshan replied. As soon as she said that, the night sky outside abruptly turned into day. It wasn't actually day, but rather the numerous illusory worlds outside the city were all giving off intense light. They were rapidly contracting and expanding, as if they were on the verge of collapsing at any moment. Xie Daoling was surprised. What's going on? Heaven Pillar World shouldn't have any issues. Gu Qingshan appeared worried and said, This world might be destroyed soon, Shifu. How about we face the tribulation right now? Xie Daoling threw the coins in her hand. Clink, 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 clink. The coins scattered all over the ground. Marsh destruction wood, great offense. Treading on the path of destruction, ominous, without blame, Xie Daoling muttered. This was a great misfortune divination. She scowled. I can also feel it. The world is about to change, but I don't know what it is. Boom. The ground trembled even more violently. Shifu, the sooner we get to the Heaven Pillar and leave this world, there's no need to worry about this world, Gu Qingshan said. Xie Daoling stood up from her chair and solemnly said, Very well. Then let's face the tribulation. Gu Qingshan gave her a jade brick. What's inside? Xie Daoling asked in surprise. This disciple had a fortuitous encounter earlier and obtained scriptures from various cultivation worlds. They're all inside, Gu Qingshan replied. Xie Daoling glanced at it and nodded. She smiled. They're all good things, much better than what I obtained. Not only will they benefit me, but I can also bring them back to our world and use them as the world's embrace of inheritance. Gu Qingshan also smiled. Shifu, as the prize for obtaining these scriptures, I have no choice but to stop this tribulation and return to where I came from to do a few things. Xie Daoling looked at her. Gu Qingshan explained, These scriptures come from the remnant wills of various worlds. I need to do a few things for them before I face the tribulation again. They'll help me at that time. World wills? Xie Daoling repeated. Gu Qingshan pointed at her left eye. Xie Daoling reached her hand out and lightly stroked it. How miraculous! You actually had such a great opportunity, being able to connect with worlds. Even your eye contains a world. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't see it with my own eyes, Xie Daoling praised. Although it was unimaginable, Xie Daoling couldn't help but believe it. Indeed, Gu Qingshan nodded. This is indeed a great opportunity for me. So, I won't be able to accompany Shifu during this tribulation, Xie Daoling replied. It's fine, this kind of opportunity is extremely rare. Just do what you need to do. The spirit tortoise suddenly appeared from the void of space, squinting its eyes as it observed Gu Qingshan. It scoffed. Humph. You brat, you don't care about your Shifu now that you have a chance. You should know that it's been a very long time since someone successfully crossed Mount Sumeru. Say no more, Xie Daoling cut it off. Qingshan's chance is unheard of. It's even more important than my tribulation, she spoke with concern. Then your teacher will be climbing the heaven-supporting pillar. You should leave this world as soon as possible. The divination shows that this world is basically doomed. Gu Qingshan looked at her, softly said, Shirzhen, disciple cannot be by your side to protect. Disciple's heart is really uneasy. I only hope that Shirzhen will turn misfortune into fortune. Everything will go smoothly, and you will ascend Mount Meru. Don't worry, I'm leaving. Saying so, Xie Daoling's figure flashed and vanished from the palace. Before the spirit turtle left, it gave Gu Qingshan a disdainful glare. Immediately after, a clear cry that sounded like the cry of a phoenix resounded in the sky outside, soaring straight into the nine heavens. Xie Daoling was gathering everyone who was preparing to face their tribulation. A few breaths later, all the cultivators gathered in the night sky. Under Xie Daoling's lead, they flew up to the pillar to heaven. The Sumeru Lord tribulation had officially begun. A few moments later, all the cultivators disappeared from this world. The only person left in Heaven Pillar World was Gu Qing Shan. He silently stood in the middle of the palace. Chapter 1195. The ring was spinning in Gu Qingshan's hand, but he still didn't put it on. This was the ring of the abyss. Wearing it meant that there was a chance of death. The above is the information I have after saying so. Gu Qingshan put it away. He yawned, sat down on the chair, and stretched his back. Finally gone, he muttered and tapped his inventory bag, wanting to take out something to drink. The inventory bag didn't react. It was now that Gu Qingshan remembered that everything she had was given to those world fragments. There was only a single azure pill left. This was the best healing pill. As for alcohol, there was none left. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but smack her lips in regret. 3 swords appeared from the void of space. Impressive. You were able to lure Linger away, the Earth's sword praised. Before meeting Gu Qingshan, it had always been following her, so it knew very well just how smart she was. I think it's going to be hard. I don't know when she'll react, Gu Qingshan commented. That's right. So if you want to do something, do it quickly, the Earth Sword agreed. Luo Bingley's voice suddenly came. Wait a minute. Why do I feel like the two of you are very proud of being able to fool his Shifu? Of course, Gu Qingshan and the Earth Sword replied at the same time. Gu Qingshan continued. Shifu is a person who isn't afraid of anything, but she cares about us disciples the most. So even if something were to happen to us, she would be very worried. How do you know? Luo Bingley asked. There was a time when Xiao Lu and I went to a neighboring sect to steal their precious 100-year-old wine. Just as we were about to be discovered, Shifu suddenly appeared in the sky, saying that she had something to discuss with her sect master, successfully drawing the attention of everyone in that sect and allowing us to escape. Gu Qingshan continued. After my analysis, the butterflies, squirrels, and goats that Xiao Lu and I met on the way were probably all her. Luo Bingley sighed. Since she cares about you so much, you can't tell her. She's in the middle of a tribulation. She'll be distracted if she's worried. Gu Qingshan waved her hand. The Earth Sword followed up. That's right, this was his own fault, and I think it's only a small matter. Luo Bingley repeated. The Earth Sword replied. Just look at how relaxed he is. Although I don't know what he's going to do, from past experience, I don't think it'll be a big problem. Gu Qingshan smiled. There are people like that who would rush back to the sect to look for Shizuan after stirring up some trouble outside. But I'm not one of them. The Chaoyin sword let out a soft cry. It didn't know why it was chirping, but it had a chirp. This way, he could participate in the conversation, and it felt very cool. Luo Bingley sighed and asked, what do we do now? After daybreak, Azure Dragon will come in to kill you. Gu Qingshan stood up and walked outside. Let's go. Hurry up. The 3 flying swords followed closely behind. Gu Qingshan flew all the way to the top of the city wall. Hey everyone, I'm here, he called out to the countless strange worlds outside the city wall. The world fragments turned into sparkling specks of light, flew around him, circled around him, and greeted him softly. Gu Qingshan continued. Everyone, according to what I said before, please end today's nightlife and go to bed early. As a token of my apology, I'll bring you something nice when I have the chance to visit you again in the future. No questions, please be careful, the world fragments replied. Don't worry, it's nothing. Gu Qingshan waved his hand dismissively. The world fragments flew back. One after another, the illusory worlds slowly faded away from the city wall. At this point, Gu Qingshan asked Luo Bingley, what do you think makes me the most attractive? Luo Bingley replied, that depends on what you want to do. I want that dragon to see me as soon as he comes in, Gu Qingshan replied. Why? Luo Bingley asked. That way, it will come to me directly, Gu Qingshan replied. Attractive, huh? You look quite good when you attack. Luo Bingley's voice became lower. Good idea, Gu Qingshan praised. At this point, the illusory worlds outside the city wall completely disappeared. The world fragments scattered and returned to their hiding places. The barrier that covered the entire world disappeared. The Azure Dragon, who was drifting outside the world, immediately sensed it. At the same time, Gu Qingshan drew his sword. He pointed at the sky and activated his sword seal. Shah, a blinding sword phantom, soared to the sky, forming a blinding pillar of light that connected heaven and earth. The Azure Dragon's figure appeared from the clouds, then turned into a fully armored, blue-clothed man and landed. He had a pair of horns on his head that stood straight up. His skin was covered in blue scales. His immense presence turned into a strong gust of wind that blew in all directions. The Azure Dragon. He looked at Gu Qing and smirked. Finding the target I wanted to kill as soon as I came in, that makes me quite happy. Gu Qing also smiled at the Azure Dragon and said, "Ha!" He spat out some blood. He had scattered quite a bit of his cultivation, causing his dantian to be wounded and his meridians to flow in reverse. This caused his cultivation to fall by quite a bit, no longer at the level where he could break through to Misvara King realm. There were cultivators who were afraid of failing their tribulation and chose to return to cultivate again. At that time, Gu Qing was very concerned, and now he had chosen the best technique to scatter his cultivation from the various cultivation worlds, one that could help him disperse a bit of his cultivation while paying the smallest price possible. The laws of the void sensed it and manifested from every direction to envelop Gu Qing. No, the Azure Dragon roared in anger. But at the very next moment, Gu Qing turned into a streak of light and left this world. He no longer had the qualifications to break through to Misvara King realm, so he was immediately kicked out and left Heaven Pillar World. He would return to where he came from. Do you think he can run away? I am the strongest dragon in the Wraith realm. I will soon catch up to you, the Azure Dragon unwillingly declared. He turned into a streak of lightning and chased after Gu Qing at an astonishing speed. The world, the space vortex, various entities, nothing could stop him. He was the Azure Dragon. Gu Qing appeared inside the ship. He chewed on the only Azure Clear pill he had and swallowed it. The power of the mystic dragon began to spread throughout his body, and in an instant, he had absorbed all the medicinal power of the pill. The light wounds on his meridians were slowly healing. Gu Qing stood still and continued to use spirit energy and magic dragon's power to speed up the healing of his meridians. A few dozen seconds later, the wounds on his meridians were mostly healed, and the Azure Clear Pill's medicinal effects had also been fully consumed. Gu Qing ignored these minor wounds and instead focused on using magic dragon's power to increase his cultivation. A few dozen seconds later, his cultivation had finally recovered and reached the point where he could attempt to break through to the Misvara King realm again. A streak of lightning flashed and landed inside the ship. The Azure-robed man laughed. "Ah, keep running. Even if you cross billions of worlds, I won't lose sight of you." The Azure-robed man's body was boiling, apparently expending a great deal of power to the point that he was panting heavily as he spoke. However, this level of stamina consumption wouldn't affect the outcome of this pursuit. After all, for the Azure Dragon, killing a Yama King realm cultivator was as easy as flipping his hand. Gu Qing appeared impressed and clasped her fist. "I've heard that the Wraith realm has an Azure Dragon. Through his many battles against the Eternal Abyss, he had made great contributions through his immense strength. Even in the small-scale battles where the Wraith realm was defeated, the Azure Dragon had never failed with the Azure Dragon's accomplishments. Even the strongest monsters of the Abyss would raise their thumbs and praise him. But the Eternal Abyss had never been able to catch him, because not only is he powerful, but his speed is also the fastest in the Wraith realm." The azure-robed man silently listened, then coldly replied, "Flatterer, no matter what you say, I will dismember your body, imprison your soul, and bring it back. After all, you're nothing but a weak insect. Nothing but an insect," Gu Qing muttered and sighed. "Then I'll have to say goodbye." He circulated his spirit energy. The heavens' tribulation had descended once again. In a split second, he disappeared from the ship. He had gone to face his Misvara King realm tribulation. He had once again entered the heavens' tribulation. The azure-robed man couldn't react in time. As soon as he understood the situation, he wanted to give chase. After all, the other party can't keep running back and forth like this. "Wait a minute. Running like this isn't a solution. The azure-robed man suddenly stopped. He stood still for a while, then slowly sat down on the chair. After all, the other party would have to return after facing the tribulation. Whether it was the Mahasvara king or Sumru Lord Realm cultivators, both of them would only be able to turn to dust in front of him. I can kill countless abyssal monsters without any help, let alone these puny cultivators? Smart indeed, but a weak insect. No matter how much he tries, he won't be able to escape the fate of death. The azure-robed man leaned back on the chair and scoffed. I'm going to rest for a bit. If you die in the heavens tribulation, that would be your fortune. Otherwise, I'll definitely return here, at which point I'll eat you alive, leaving only your soul for Master to deal with. He closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. He suddenly felt something amiss. The azure-robed man stood up, his figure flashed, and appeared in the space vortex outside the ship. He suddenly noticed that there wasn't a single gap within the space vortex. The most powerful monsters of the eternal abyss were all gathered here. They had arrived without a sound, already hidden within the void of space, only slowly showing themselves after Gu Qing had left. The ship was completely surrounded by abyssal monsters. Even in an extremely faraway place, there were still powerful monsters of the eternal abyss. The entire space vortex had been sealed off by the power of the abyssal. Even the Wraith King wouldn't fare well in such a situation by itself. Oh no, I've been tricked. The azure-robed man muttered blankly. He suddenly sensed a unique meaning. Death was approaching. The eternal abyss had sent a group of the most powerful war meat grinders here just to cooperate with Gu Qingshan's operation and meticulously set up a place to completely surround and kill him. Even if his speed was the fastest in the Wraith realm, he wouldn't be able to escape from such an encirclement, which meant this was indeed the Azure Dragon's time to die. One of the abyssal monsters displayed a rare, mocking expression and spoke with a deafening voice. Are you going to flatter us first? Weak insect. Chapter 1196. The Pillar to Heaven. There was a flight of stairs on top of the pillar that reached all the way to the clouds. According to ancient legends, whenever someone tried to climb this flight of stairs, the entire heaven pillar world would experience supernatural phenomena. Heavenly music would play, and countless deities would come to witness this. That was a very long time ago. But now, never mind the deities, even the pillar to heaven had been broken. What followed was a fact that caused the cultivators to feel despair. The number of cultivators who could successfully advance to Sumru Lord Realm was becoming fewer and fewer. In the last few thousand years, the number of cultivators who managed to become Sumru Lord Realm was 0. The era of cultivators seemed to have entered a gradual decline. Under the shroud of night, Xie Daoling led the 11 cultivators to fly from the ground to the sky, following the broken pillar to heaven upwards. Not too long after, the cultivators saw a lake above the sea of clouds. The water of the lake reflected the clouds and sky, vast and boundless, without end in sight. Xie Daoling didn't say anything, only formed a hand seal and flew into the lake first. The others quickly followed. The cultivators fell into the lake and continued to descend until the light around them became dimmer and dimmer. Finally, the lake was completely dark, so dark that they couldn't see anything at all. A faint glimmer of light flickered. This glimmer was almost undetectable, but the cultivators had already released their inner sight to search for it. That direction, young Tortoise immediately called out. Xie Daoling's body moved and led the group towards a glimmer. A few moments later, the darkness around them turned bright. The light shone through the surface of the water, creating a ripple of light. The lake water became clearer and clearer. The group leapt out of the water. The lake was vast and boundless. There was no wind or mist around. Not a single thing could be seen in the sky. Everyone looked at Xie Daoling with complicated expressions and a bit of anxiety. No one knew what would happen to them next. Indeed, to be able to cultivate to their current realm, they were all combatants with firm minds, great willpower, and great awareness. But no one had ever successfully faced their tribulation in the last few thousand years. Anyone in their position would be doubtful. Especially in the last few hundred years, very few people were willing to face the Mahesvara King realm tribulation anymore. This was because the people who came were basically all dead and gone. Only a few lucky ones were able to regress their realm and return with their lives. Even so, he had to recuperate for hundreds of years before he could gradually recover. Gu Qingshan had used the most advanced realm reversion technique, which was why she was only lightly wounded. The technique to reverse one's cultivation level came from a broken cultivation world and was long lost. If it weren't for the fact that Gu Qingshan was the inheritor of the world's sacrifice and could communicate with the will of the world fragment, she probably wouldn't have been able to obtain this technique. In addition, Gu Qingshan also had the power of the magic dragon. After retreating for a while, he immediately released the enormous power of the magic dragon, allowing himself to return to his peak state before entering the heavenly tribulation again. The immortal lake of inversion has passed, Sect Master Xie, a cultivator, reminded him in a small voice. Xie Daoling nodded. She looked in a certain direction and couldn't help sizing it up. What a brilliant lapis lazuli mountain, Xie Daoling sighed. Everyone looked over, but they saw nothing. Summer Mountain was a mountain of the laws of heaven and earth. Only great cultivators who faced their Sumru Lord realm tribulation could see it. A cultivator praised, "Seeing Summer Mountain with one's eyes from now on, immortals and mortals will be separated. I wonder when we'll be able to reach this step." Everyone went silent. The Sumru Lord realm tribulation and the Mahesvara King realm tribulation were linked. If no cultivator could break through the Sumru Lord realm tribulation, then no one could break through the Mahesvara King realm tribulation and become a Mahesvara King realm tribulation. Xie Daoling watched for a while without saying anything. The water of the lake began to boil. A gigantic creature was quickly swimming through the lake, approaching them from afar. A few moments later, a monster crawled out from the water. It was 5 stories tall, with a lion head, antlers, and dragon scales all over its body. As soon as it appeared, someone exclaimed in shock, "A Qilin!" The Qilin was an ancient divine beast that had already gone extinct in the infinite worlds. Everyone remained cautious while greedily looking at the Qilin's appearance. This was a legendary divine beast. The Qilin looked at Xie Daoling and spoke in human language. "Who is facing the tribulation?" "Bai Hua sect, Xie Daoling." "Very well. Follow me into the lapis lazuli world." "Wait," the Qilin stopped and asked again, "Is there something else? Do you want to regress your cultivation and give up on this tribulation?" "That is not the case," Xie Daoling casually replied. "I still need to wait for another person to arrive before I can face the tribulation." "Who are you waiting for?" "My disciple, Gu Qingshan, at another location." Gu Qingshan returned to Heaven Pillar World, flew through the wilderness, and returned to the city wall. "Ah," he sighed deeply. "Ah." The earth sword let out a heavy woo-woo sound. "What?" Luo Bingli doubtfully asked. Neither man nor sword answered. Luo Bingli could only follow their gazes. On the city wall, a beautiful bird was sitting on the roof of a building, inadvertently looking at them. Gu Qingshan hurriedly clasped her fist towards the bird. "Shifu, I have some personal matters to attend to. I originally didn't want to disturb your tribulation." The bird squinted its eyes and asked, "Who bullied you?" "It's not that kind of thing," Gu Qingshan slowly replied. "Someone was bored out of his mind and came to provoke me. I just showed him the road to Huangquan." The bird's presence faded and sighed. "That is how our Bai Hua sect should be. If Xiao Lu could be like you, I would be assured. I'll talk to him later," Gu Qingshan said. "Are you still coming to face the tribulation this time?" the bird asked. Gu Qingshan awkwardly replied, "Ah, I still have some loose ends to take care of. How about you go first, Shifu? I'll be right there. Do you want Shifu to help you with your own matters?" the bird asked. "No need. I'll be done very quickly," Gu Qingshan replied. I'll wait for you." After saying so, the bird disappeared. This clone had returned to Xie Daoling's side. Gu Qingshan stood still, shielding her eyes with her hand as she looked up at the sky. "They should be here soon. Him, they aren't as fast as the Azure Dragon, but they should be able to get through." While she spoke, several dozen black dots appeared in the sky. Boom! The black dots all descended, completely surrounding the section of the city wall where Gu Shan was. Abyssal monsters. These ferocious monsters were fully armed, exuding a terrifying presence. One of the monsters spoke with a low, muffled voice. "Please take a look, Master of Order." The dozens of monsters raised their hands at the same time, giving off a gray glow. This glow manifested into strings in the air, forming a cage. Inside the cage, a blue-clothed man was covered in wounds, his hands and feet bound by the gray glow, unable to move at all. The Azure Dragon. He was already at the brink of death, his life like a candle in the wind, about to go out at any moment. Even so, as soon as he saw Gu Shan, he began to struggle intensely. "You thief! You're too treacherous. You're not a true warrior. You're even more of a wraith than a wraith. The Wraith realm will definitely cut you to pieces." The Azure Dragon roared in frenzy. He had never felt so aggrieved before. Gu Shan tilted his head in thought, then replied, "That's not true." The Azure Dragon froze. "What did you say?" Despite his rage, he couldn't help but ask. Gu Shan raised a finger and replied, "If you think I'm even more of a wraith than a wraith, then how can the Wraith realm cut me to pieces?" The Azure Dragon coldly spoke. "Brat, with your meager strength, don't." Gu Shan cut him off. "I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry." Strands of black aura exuded from his body and entered the cage. The power of Magic Dragon's bloodline. With the help of the living being sacrificial dance, Gu Shan had gained full control of Magic Dragon's power, so she was naturally able to use this unique power. The Azure Dragon was slowly being corroded by the power of Magic Dragon's bloodline. "This is such power!" He knelt on the ground, trembling as he received the power of Magic Dragon's bloodline, muttering in surprise. A few moments later, the Azure Dragon understood. "You gave me this power in order to control me and make me work for you." He narrowed his eyes and asked. "First he beat me into a sorry state. Then he bestowed me power. This is the classic example of giving a jujube for every hit. Seems like this brat understands the value of the dragon race, as well as how much support the dragon race can provide. Among the countless worlds, having a dragon to fight for you has always been the dream of many ambitious people. This brat wants me to follow him and work for him with my life." The Azure Dragon understood. However, this idea is too naive. Does he really think everyone will listen to his orders? Become his subordinate? I'll definitely agree to him first, even if I have to put various seals on myself. Even if I have to sign various contracts, it doesn't matter. When my master comes later, he'll definitely be able to undo those things. What I need to do is first feign civility, then provide my master with the whereabouts of this Huang Quan Devil King. The Azure Dragon instantly confirmed what he needed to do. "Work for me? You have such an idea?" Gu Shan asked, a bit surprised. The Azure Dragon nodded. "Your wisdom is truly admirable. I'm willing to sign any contract with you. Even if you put seals on my soul, I'll listen to your orders and be at your beck and call. As long as you spare my life." Gu Shan paused. He appeared troubled and finally said, "About that, I'm sorry. It seems I'll have to explain a bit. Speaking of which, do you know of a certain cooking method called eating more than one fish?" The Azure Dragon froze and shook his head. "I don't know what you're talking about." Gu Shan cleared his throat, then slowly explained. "It's like this. For a fish, you can actually use the flesh to make sashimi, the fish body, and other spices to make soup, while the fish head can be made into steamed chili pepper fish head by adding a bit of chili and pepper. Actually, I prefer the fish head to be braised and the fish body to be steamed. This is how I usually like to make salt water. In this case, the whole fish will be finished. It won't be wasted at all." And so, Gu Shan drew her sword and lightly swung it at the cage. The Azure Dragon was already on the brink of death, so his power was at its weakest, so he naturally couldn't resist such an attack. Shah! A head flew up. Gu Shan sheathed her sword. The head fell to the ground, but it was still staring at Gu Shan with a confused expression. It really couldn't understand what Gu Shan was thinking. He died with his eyes wide open. Guqing Shan sighed and could only explain, I'm sorry, I don't usually make friends with my enemies, and I'm not so naive as to think that I can make them my subordinates. I usually kill them as soon as I can. Only when I run into a worthy enemy would I use my brain to think like eating more than one fish and not waste anything. As soon as she said so, a few lines of glowing text appeared on the war god. UI, frowny face, you've killed a magic dragon's bloodline descendant. The power of this magic. Dragon's bloodline descendant will be completely devoured by you as the magic dragon. You've killed a mythical creature, Azure Dragon. This battle has been judged as a battle above your level. You'll receive the corresponding soul points. Calculating soul points. Chapter 1197. The Azure Dragon's head fell to the ground, carefully picked up by an abyssal monster. According to the agreement, the dragon's body and soul belonged to the abyss. It looked at Guqing Shan and cautiously said. Guqing Shan shrugged. Of course, the abyssal monster sighed in relief. Let's go with a single order. All the abyssal monsters leapt into the air and flew through the sky. Guqing Shan waited for a few moments before abruptly kneeling on the ground. Embark! He couldn't help but roar. An azure figure and a black figure were entangling behind him, exuding terrifying power. Lines of glowing text were quickly being refreshed on the war god UI. Frowny face, although you could be considered a slumbering magic dragon, the amount of power you absorbed this time was too great. You will need to endure extreme pain for 1 minute in order to store all of it and slowly digest it later. Indeed, the Azure Dragon was heavily wounded and on the verge of death, but as long as he was treated, he would quickly recover. He was a rare and powerful dragon of the Wraith realm. If he wasn't so weak, he would probably have a way to resist the magic dragon's bloodline. Since Guqing Shan had devoured his power, it was already a miracle that he didn't explode. Fortunately, he had already converted quite a bit of the magic dragon's power to be able to do this. Although you have the identity of an earth god, you are currently still immortal. Because of that, this was a full-fledged kill above your level. The war god UI will absorb all soul points from the Azure Dragon's body. You've obtained 6 million soul points. 6 million! Guqing Shan was still in extreme pain, but seeing this number, she felt assured. Lines of glowing text were still popping up on the war god UI. Frowny face, you are currently using the magic dragon's bloodline to devour the power of the mythical creature, Azure Dragon. The power of that existence is too great, so it will be used as a reserve for you to slowly absorb during your daily life. Special reminder, the Azure Dragon's main attack abilities have all been stored as power reserves. Only a few special abilities are left. You can choose one of these special abilities and turn it into your own ability, or use the power of the magic dragon to devour all of them to replace your magic dragon bloodline ability. Attention! The magic dragon is a super soul armament created by the bygone era humans. If you choose to consume it, you will lose the power of the magic dragon's bloodline and replace it with an unknown new ability. Guqing Shan resolutely said, No, there is no need to devour it. What a joke. Guqing Shan sometimes even felt that the magic dragon's bloodline power was the pinnacle of the bygone era humanity's work. The release of the magic dragon's bloodline power actually required a relatively long period of time. It was best to wait for those who had obtained the power of the magic dragon's bloodline power to mature before harvesting them. Using this power in battle would immediately bring intense pain and torture to the enemy. Furthermore, after killing the enemy, he would be able to absorb their power. This ability was similar to the fable. Those who fight against the evil dragon will eventually become the evil dragon. But in the midst of the apocalypse, where the infinite worlds are constantly being destroyed, who cares what you are? Of course, especially powerful enemies. For example, the Azure Dragon in its perfect state would have a way to stop the corrosion of this power. On the war god UI, lines of glowing text flashed and refreshed frowny face you've given up on devouring, instead choosing to obtain a special ability and turn it into a thaumaturgy. Please choose one of the following special abilities and turn it into your thaumaturgy first. Dragon Centipede. Dragon Centipede. Enemies struck by you will definitely be sent flying. Second, Azure Dragon Scale Shield. Azure Dragon Scale Shield. You can use the Azure Shadow Shield once every 5 minutes to block the majority of attacks, allowing yourself to only receive 30% of the damage. Third, Leap of Source Stream. Origin Flow Leap. Directly traverse the void of space. Moving at 2000% speed requires a certain amount of soul points. Attention, cannot attack while moving, otherwise the movement will be cancelled. Fourth, Azure Dragon Shadow Hex. Binding. Azure Dragon Shadow Hex. Binding. While conversing with an enemy, the incantation will manifest into an undetectable Azure Dragon Shadow Shackle that binds the enemy's body, slowing down their movement and attack speed. The effect is directly proportional to the length of your conversation. At this point, Gu Qingshan's pain slowly subsided. Reading through these abilities, he slowly appeared surprised. Dragon Centipede and Azure Dragon Scale Shield. These two special abilities are quite decent. The third special ability is even more impressive. Origin Flow Leap. This was the Azure Dragon's foundation, capable of rapidly traversing through the void of space, making it impossible for anyone to catch up to it. The reason why it was able to chase me all the way from Heaven Pillar World all the way to the Eternal Abyss was because of this ability. As for the Azure Dragon Shadow Hex, Binding, this ability gave Gu Qingshan a strange feeling. He suddenly came to a realization. The Azure Dragon had been talking to me ever since it descended from the sky, so it was actually using this Binding Hex. As long as it's talking to someone, it's basically using its ability. The Azure Dragon is countless times stronger than I am, but it's still acting so cautiously in battle. Or rather, sly. This is truly impressive. In truth, both sides had trump cards that the other couldn't see through, but Gu Qingshan's trump card was borrowed from the Law of Tribulation, the power of the Magic Dragon, and the army of the Eternal Scar Abyss. Otherwise, it's hard to say who would live and who would die. This was the unpredictability of battles within the infinite worlds. Until the very last moment, no one would know what the other side's trump card was. No one would know if they could win or not. Gu Qingshan sighed in relief, feeling a bit of lingering fear. Who would have thought that such a powerful Azure Dragon would be such a sly old fox? He paused for a second. That can't be right. This ability seems to be very suitable for me. Gu Qingshan's gaze fell onto the War God UI, moving between Origin Flow Leap and Azure Dragon Shadow Hex, Binding. The War God UI's voice came. Please select the Azure Dragon ability you wish to convert within 1 minute. After that time is up, the laws that make up these abilities will collapse and will no longer be able to be absorbed. Gu Qingshan finally stopped hesitating. I choose Azure Dragon Shadow Hex. Binding, are you sure? I'm sure. Gu Qingshan clenched his teeth. The War God UI replied, currently absorbing the above unique abilities and converting them into your thaumaturgy. Please wait for 10 minutes. Gu Qingshan slowly stood up. The pain on his body slowly disappeared. An abundant amount of power continuously appeared inside his body. This was the power reserve created from the combination of Magic Dragon's power and Azure Dragon's power. From now on, Gu Qingshan would be growing stronger at every moment. At the same time, he was also obtaining a unique power from the Azure Dragon. Truly, killing a single dragon would bring countless benefits. Magic Dragon, Azure Dragon. Will there be more dragons after that? While looking forward to it, Gu Qingshan replied, there's no need to wait. Just notify me when the time is up. I need to catch up to Shifu and the others. As soon as he finished speaking, his body moved and he soared into the sky. As he flew into the sky, he saw another bird. The bird lightly flapped its wings and landed on his shoulder. Xie Daoling's voice came. This way, dive into the immortal lake of inversion. Gu Qingshan leapt out of the water and appeared in front of everyone. Excuse me, I have some private matters to attend to. He smiled and clasped his fist to everyone. Everyone clasped their fists to return the greeting without any impatience on their faces. This youngster was Sect Master Xie's disciple. Between the two of them, one came to face his Sumru Lord Realm Tribulation, while the other came to face his Mahesvara king, realm tribulation. It was clear how powerful their sect was. Befriending such a person was the best choice. The Cheelan's voice resounded. Very well. Everyone has arrived. Would you like to begin climbing Mount Sumera now? Xie Dao Ling nodded and replied. Let's begin. The Cheelan leapt into the sky and turned into a transparent phantom that gave off a 5-colored glow. The phantom slowly became solid. It was a Cheelan 5-colored mountain suppressing lock that was 15 meters tall and 20 meters wide. The lock pointed at Xie Dao Ling open, mountain, gate. The Cheelan's heavy roar resounded across the void of space. The entire world parted in 2 directions. A translucent, glassy divine mountain that reached the heavens appeared before everyone's eyes. Everyone's hearts were filled with shock. The divine beast Cheelan's voice resounded again. The divine mountain is clear, pure, and untainted, formed from the accumulation of countless worlds of pure bliss. But after a long time, a few worlds on top of the divine mountain had already fallen into ruin following its voice. The glass-like divine mountain slowly turned gray. The entire mountain was tainted by a gloomy hue, exuding a sense of destruction and decay. My God! No wonder no one managed to face their tribulation again. Someone exclaimed in shock. Another person pointed at the divine mountain and trembled. When I came here a few hundred years ago, the divine mountain wasn't like this, but now almost all the worlds on top of the divine mountain have been destroyed. How could they possibly face the tribulation? From the bottom of the mountain to the top, every step represents destruction. Difficult, difficult, difficult. Another cultivator muttered to himself and sighed repeatedly. He directly used a scripture to reverse his spirit energy and struck his dantian. Puffed. Everyone only saw him spit up some blood. In a split second, his figure disappeared from the tribulation. This person had directly regressed his cultivation and returned to his cultivation world. The Cheelan's voice resounded again. Xie Dao Ling, you must pass through the destroyed worlds one after another, sweeping away the filth along the way for the divine mountain. Only then will you become a Sumera lord. Xie Dao Ling stood with her hands clasped behind her back, silently watching the pitch-black divine mountain without saying anything. Gu Qingshan came up behind her and whispered, Don't worry, Shifu. I'm familiar with this. Chapter 1198. The dark gray Mount Sumeru stood at a faraway place. Xie Dao Ling turned around and told the cultivators, If you're willing to face the tribulation with me, then come with me. But if you care about your lives, please turn back immediately. Everyone looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. An old man suddenly sighed. Mount Sumeru is almost destroyed. This tribulation is too dangerous. As a Yama King Realm Peak stage cultivator, I have a long lifespan, so I might as well wait for time to pass and see if there's a chance to turn things around in the future. Saying so, the old man formed a hand seal and reversed his spirit energy to attack his dantian. PFT, after spitting up some blood, the old man's figure slowly disappeared from this world. Following that, 2 other cultivators chose to turn back and avoid this tribulation. The rest of them didn't move. Gu Qingshan counted. Including me and Shifu, there were 10 people left. 9 Yama King Realm Peak Stage cultivators. 1 Mahesvara King Realm cultivator. This level of power was something Gu Qingshan had never seen before. Let's go. Xie Dao Ling flew up and headed towards Mount Sumeru. Gu Qingshan followed. The other 8 people followed closely behind. After about 15 minutes of flying, they finally reached the foot of Mount Sumeru. Gu Qingshan noticed something and used the world power in her eyes to silently observe the divine mountain. The feeling of looking at the divine mountain from here was different. This mountain seemed to be a Dharma manifestation mountain, so it was impossible to see what was on the mountain with normal vision. But if one used world power to sense it, they would find that the mountain was hiding boundless world origin power and laws of heaven and earth, intertwining and pulling each other to form interconnected worlds. At first glance, it looked like a great 1,000 worlds, but if one carefully sensed it, they would feel as if it was completely transparent. How strange! Gu Qing-shan muttered. Everyone turned to look at her. It's fine, Gu Qing-shan smiled. What should we do now? An envoy is coming to receive us, Xiet Dao Ling pointed ahead. A hole suddenly appeared at the foot of the gray mountain. A monkey jumped out and called out to everyone. The situation is getting worse. Hurry up and help. What's the situation? A cultivator bravely asked. The macaque sighed. The divine mountain is on the brink of destruction. I'm afraid it won't bode well this time. Everyone fell silent. Suddenly, a female cultivator coughed up a mouthful of blood. Her figure gradually disappeared. Another one left. Now there were 9 people left. Macaque scratched his body and said in puzzlement, Why did one run away? It shook its head and raised a gong and hammer. Strike the Dharma gong, and you'll be led in by the divine mountain. The Dharma gong will randomly take one of your names, and according to the names you have taken, it will send you to different corners of the divine mountain. Who's first? Everyone looked at the gong in Macaque's hand. Indeed, according to the records of past tribulations, everyone was separated when they first entered the divine mountain. I'll go first. Xie Dao Ling received the Dharma gong and hammer, glanced at Gu Qing-shan, and sent her voice, I'll go in first. Gu Qing-shan nodded slightly and replied, Be careful, master. I'll look for you after I go in. Xie Dao Ling raised the Dharma gong and lightly struck it. A voice resounded from the Dharma gong. Xie Dao Ling, today's names will be extracted. 3 Saints of Humanity. 3 Saints of Humanity is a title that can only be obtained by immortals who are revered by countless people. With this title, I've decided, Xie Dao Ling, entry point. Ancient heaven of immortals, a layer of light appeared around Xie Dao Ling's body, enveloped her, and disappeared with a sha. Everyone became spirited. Sect Master Xie is truly admirable. So, it was the ancient heaven of immortals. Indeed, what a good start. Seems like there's still a chance this time. Xie Dao Ling had made a good start. According to historical records, the ancient heaven of immortals was the most prosperous place at the foot of Mount Sumeru, containing countless ancient inheritances and treasures. The ancient heaven of immortals was also protected by numerous powerful defensive techniques, making it the best place to stay. Gu Qing-shan thought for a bit, then silently asked the war god Yue, Names, are they the same as names? Recognized by the laws of heaven and earth, recognized by all living beings, both are names and names, the war god Yue replied. His soul points went up by 200. Gu Qing-shan is now a rich person. With a total of 6 million soul points, it's fine to just take a glance at it. If it's titles, I already have a lot of powerful ones like Huang Quan Devil King, Shunwei General, Starflame War God, or the Dragon Slayer of the Age of Old. However, I've only killed an Azure Dragon, so the Dragon Slayer of the Age of Old title should have been changed by now. While he was thinking, the macaque received the gong and hammer, then turned to everyone else. All right, next, a middle-aged cultivator smiled as he received the gong and hammer. The middle-aged cultivator said, Fellow Dao Seeker Gu, and everyone else. Although this one isn't particularly talented, I'm quite confident in the matter of titles. So, I should be able to reach the ancient heaven of immortals as well. How about this one go first? I'll follow Sect Master Xie and listen to her orders. Gu Qing-shan thought for a bit and nodded. Then you go first. The middle-aged cultivator picked up the gong hammer and struck the Dharma gong with force. The gong immediately spoke. Zhang Yongji, today's title obtained, is Miracle Hand Doctor Saint. Miracle Hand Doctor Saint is a title that can only be obtained by a cultivator who cherishes the world, a title that can only be obtained by a heavenly being who is revered by countless people. With this title, I have decided, Zhang Yongji, destination of entry. Ancient heaven of immortals, everyone cheered. Zhang Yongji clasped his fist, then instantly warped away. Gu Qing-shan also felt a bit more assured. This person is proficient in healing techniques, as well as being a Yama King realm cultivator. His attacks wouldn't be too shabby either, not to mention that he was able to obtain such a title. He should be a decent helper. At this point, the macaque raised the gong and hammer again, looking at everyone. A beautiful female cultivator with an otherworldly temperament came forward, received the gong, and lightly struck it. The gong immediately spoke. Wang Yun, today's title obtained is Banished Fairy. Banished Fairy is a title that can only be obtained by a female cultivator who is blessed by the world. With this title, I have decided, Wang Yun, destination of entry, Autumn Lakeside. The female cultivator nodded to everyone and said, Fellow Tao seekers, we'll meet inside. She was enveloped by the light and disappeared without a trace. One of the cultivators mused, Autumn Lakeside is a good place, but it's a bit too close to those dangerous defensive fortresses and observation towers. Another cultivator said, It's fine, this is only a place to stay. There's no need to worry too much about it. That's true, the other cultivator replied. At this point, Gu Qingshan came out and received the gong hammer from the macaque. The rest of the cultivators all looked at him with the same thought. His Shifu is one of the three saints of humanity. Then, as Yama King, Realm Sword Cultivator, his title wouldn't be too bad either. Gu Qingshan clasped his fist to everyone. Everyone will meet again inside. He picked up the gong and lightly struck it. The gong immediately spoke. Gu Qingshan, today's title obtained is Big Tabby Cat. Big Tabby Cat is... The gong couldn't continue. Big Tabby Cat. Why is this a title recognized by the laws of heaven and earth? The gong has never seen such a title before in its entire life. So how exactly do I explain this title? Gu Qingshan was also a bit confused. Didn't I already turn into a cat? Why didn't I use the Dragon Slayer title? Or the War God title would have been fine. Why? He turned to the cultivators. All the cultivators looked at him with a look of incomprehension. At this point, the gong no longer hesitated and declared frowny face Gu Qingshan, destination of entry. Frontline observation tower. A light enveloped Gu Qingshan and disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 1199. It was a cold night. A snowy night. The frontline observation tower. Gu Qingshan appeared out of thin air, only to see an old set of scaled armor on the ground. Other than that, there was nothing else. Gu Qingshan crouched down on top of the cold bricks and looked outside the observation tower. Between the lofty mountains and precipitous ridges, the sporadic beacons were slowly being extinguished, leaving only a wisp of black smoke rising indistinctly in the wind, blending into the night sky. Only the howling of the wind could be heard. A faint stench of blood was carried by the wind, then quickly moved away. Roar. Following that, someone seemed to be screaming in pain. But when Gu Qingshan released her inner sight to investigate, she couldn't find anything. Seems like it's too far away from where I am. Gu Qingshan had no choice but to give up. The void of space suddenly moved. A jade badge appeared in front of Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan's inner sight seeped into the jade badge and quickly understood everything. When a cultivator facing their tribulation enters Mount Sumeru, the law of Mount Sumeru would automatically create a jade badge and grant it to the person facing their tribulation. Once the person facing their tribulation receives the jade badge, they would gain an identity within Mount Sumeru, as well as some basic information about the situation. The beacon fires had already been lit at dusk. Half an hour ago, the front line was completely routed. Under such circumstances, the observation tower had lost its purpose. The order to retreat had finally been issued. Gu Qingshan was the watchman of the observation tower, a corporal, so he was supposed to guard the observation tower with his life and not leave without an order. But now that the order had been issued, he could escape. After receiving all the information, Gu Qingshan silently sighed. After being given the Big Tabby Cat epithet, I was thrown here. This treatment couldn't be compared to other cultivators. So what if I'm a cat? Don't cats have rights? Gu Qingshan suddenly sensed something and grabbed the void of space to summon a 7-colored shield. The shield lightly vibrated, then slowly lost all of its light. A line of text appeared on the War God UI. Frowny face, living being guardian shield abyssal pack has been forbidden. Attention, from now on, you will not be able to use the power of the abyssal pact within Mount Sumeru. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask why. The War God UI replied, During the Mahasvara King or Realm Tribulation and the Mahasvara King or Realm Tribulation, a cultivator must face the true secret of their identity. Because of that, the Divine Mountain of Sumeru forbade the summoning method of the Abyss faction, preventing it from participating. The secret of your identity? What's that? Gu Qing-shan asked. Regarding this question, you will need to explore it yourself. The war god Ui replied. 400 soul points were deducted. Gu Qing-shan furrowed her brows and silently stored the omniscient shield into the void. Even if he couldn't summon abyssal monsters, at least the shield's defensive power wasn't stripped away. Suddenly, a series of beast roars came from afar. The wind was even more piercing. Gu Qing-shan looked at the observation deck. It was a mess. The others had already left in a hurry, leaving him alone. Gu Qing-shan no longer hesitated. She picked up the old scale armor on the ground and put it on. It was better to have a suit of armor than nothing. A line of glowing text appeared on the war god Ui. Frowny face, you've obtained frontline soldier armor. Old, half-damaged. Frontline soldier armor. This is a normal armor, capable of blocking cold weapons to a certain extent. Gu Qing-shan held the earth sword in his hand, then leapt forward and flew into the darkness. Darkness. Cold. The entire world was covered in snow. Gu Qing-shan was flying alone across the desolate landscape. It was currently wartime, and he had just suffered defeat, so he was a bit cautious and didn't fly straight away. But how exactly did he lose? Who were the enemies? Where were his allies? None of these questions had an answer. The Jade Badge only gave him a basic description of his identity, nothing else. While flying, Gu Qing-shan looked around. The snowstorm was too intense. Not a single living creature could be seen along the way. Earth Sword, Gu Qing-shan muttered. I'm here. Don't you feel that this world is different from the worlds we've been to before? I don't, the Earth Sword replied. Gu Qing-shan swung the Earth Sword and slashed at the ground. Bam! A heavy sound of impact. A small crater was cut into the ground. I can feel it now, the Earth Sword replied. The origin of this world is unimaginably powerful, so I can't cut this world apart if it was in the past. A single slash from Gu Qing-shan would have already split the ground apart. Gu Qing-shan replied, That's right. I heard that the world on Mount Sumeru is about to be destroyed, but the world beneath our feet is still so stable. That's a bit strange. He suddenly stopped. A short moment later, a cautious shout came from the darkness in front of him. Who are you? Gu Qing-shan clasped his fist. This humble one is a corporal of the 15th Southwest Frontline Observation Tower. Gu Qing-shan, under orders to retreat, the voice asked again. I know about that observation tower, but why are you alone? Where are your comrades? Gu Qing-shan replied. This humble one is responsible for bringing up the rear. As for them, they've most likely followed the main force and retreated from this area. Suddenly, another immature voice came. He's telling the truth. The people on that observation tower have all left. I saw them go to the rear with my own eyes. The voice from before calmed down and replied. So that's how it is as a senior officer. He was responsible for bringing up the rear by himself. Such an action was naturally worthy of respect. A corner of the darkness was lifted to reveal the light of a fire. Two cultivators in leather armor cautiously looked around. Come quickly. Corporal Gu, a cultivator with a bow on his back, waved his hand. Gu Qing-shan observed them for a bit. Obviously, these two were scouts in charge of gathering intelligence. Gu Qing-shan walked over and entered the formation. The formation quickly closed up. Darkness once again enveloped this wilderness. You're resting? Gu Qing-shan sat down next to the fire and asked. The cultivator with the bow replied, That's right, we've been running for 7 to 8 days straight and fought quite a few battles. We can't hold on any longer. The three of them clasped their fists to greet each other. Gu Qing-shan, Chang Yu Li, the cultivator with the bow replied. The young cultivator with the dagger replied. Gu Qing-shan looked at the young cultivator. Ah, that's right, my father gave me this name. He's a spirit chef who likes Bai Zhuo's cooking method, and our surname is Bai, so? The young man replied. Gu Qing-shan praised. I understand completely. I'm actually a spirit chef back home. Bai Zhuo scratched his head and shyly replied. Actually, compared to cooking, I feel like fighting is a bit more eye-catching. He formed a hand seal to make the fire a bit more intense. Chan Yuli conveniently took out a pot, put it on top of the fire, and began to throw ingredients inside. Don't be fooled by the fact that his father is a spirit chef. He's actually a blade user, the kind that kills demons. Chan Yuli silently gestured to Gu Qingshan with his hand. Gu Qingshan immediately understood. So it's to show off in front of the person he likes. This really is something young people like to do. With a smile, Gu Qingshan reached into his inventory bag. His hand stopped. His inventory bag was empty. Back in Heaven Pillar World, I gave everything I had to the world fragments. I also ate the last Azure Clear pill. Aside from the 3 flying swords, I have nothing else on me right now. If I can't resolve the issue of eating properly, Gu Qingshan's heart sank. He begrudgingly sat there, feeling lost. Chan Yuli and Bai Zhuo were both scouts, so their eyes were much sharper than normal people. Bai Zhuo flipped through his inventory bag and added a few more ingredients. Chan Yuli then gently said, "Brother Gu, please join us for a meal. There's no need to stand on ceremony." Gu Qingshan rubbed his hands and awkwardly said, "Then I'll have to trouble you. I'm actually quite familiar with cooking. How about I help you out?" Chan Yuli's eyes lit up and said, "Right, you said earlier that you're a spirit chef. Then I'll have to trouble you." Gu Qingshan received the pot as his presence changed. "Don't worry, dinner will be ready in about 15 minutes. Chan Yuli and Bai Zhuo nodded, then went to rest. Indeed, cultivators could go for a long period of time without eating. But when it came to eating, treating it as nothing more than filling one's stomach was actually a huge misunderstanding. True spirit chefs only need to cook a single meal, then serve a cup of spirit tea, and they'll be able to push a large group of cultivators to their peak state. Regardless of the cultivator's realm, dinner was quickly prepared. Then, it was devoured by the 3 of them at an even faster speed. Chan Yuli stood up and said, "Corporal Gu, Bai Zhuo, and I will be returning to the front lines to investigate something. We won't be going with Corporal Gu." Gu Qingshan also stood up and said, "If you don't mind, tell me what you're looking for. After all, I was the last person to leave the front line, so I should be able to provide you with some information." Chan Yuli nodded. "We're looking for a large insect." Saying so, he handed her a communication talisman. "A tiger." Gu Qingshan received the talisman and asked in surprise. Bai Zhuo replied, "That's right, it caused a lot of damage to the front lines, so the higher-ups ordered us to track it down." Gu Qingshan pondered. "When I left the Southwest 15 frontline observation tower, I faintly heard some roars, but I can't tell if it was a tiger or not. They specifically sent 2 scouts to look for a tiger." "Are they serious?" Gu Qingshan released her inner sight and lightly touched the 2 of them. Chan Yuli was 3 realms lower than me. Bai Zhuo was a bit weaker for realms lower. Their strength was passable, and they might even have a thaumaturgy that allowed them to return to the front lines to carry out such a mission. Bai Zhuo used the hand seal to extinguish the fire. The 3 of them cleaned up the mess. It was time apart. "Farewell." Chan Yuli and Bai Zhuo clasped their fists. "Be careful. The 2 of you." Gu Qingshan also clasped her fist. The 2 of them nodded, then flew deeper into the wilderness. Gu Qingshan turned around and hurried on his way. The military order required all lookouts to return to the Changfeng military camp before dawn. So Gu Qingshan also sped up. The cold night was getting deeper. The snow around them was getting thicker and thicker, but the wind slowly calmed down and finally stopped. Gu Qingshan continued to fly forward. At a certain point, he suddenly stopped. A thick stench of blood washed over him. Gu Qingshan lowered his gaze, turned his hand around, and wielded the twin swords Heaven and Earth. Huff! Huff! The sound of heavy breathing came closer and closer, quickly arriving in front of Gu Qingshan. The sound of heavy breathing slowly disappeared. A thin tiger covered in grayish-white flames appeared in front of Gu Qingshan. Its body was about 3 meters tall, almost 10 meters long, squinting its eyes and staring straight at Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan pursed his lips. How laughable! So was this kind of tiger. I didn't think I would actually run into this vicious creature. Sensing some sort of danger, Gu Qingshan's expression turned serious. The thin tiger stared straight at him, then suddenly spat something out. That thing fell to the ground and sank into the snow. A human head. Bai Zhuo. He opened his eyes wide, seemingly unwilling to part, unwilling to die. Gu Qingshan's gaze turned cold as killing intent surged from his body. Animal, I'm going to skin you alive. He raised his sword and slowly declared. Instantly, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god. UI, frowny face, you've officially participated in the destruction of Mount Sumeru. To help you in battle, as well as to save yourself, the divine mountain of Sumeru has granted you the Mahasvara King thaumaturgy in accordance with the epithet extracted from you. As you're a cultivator, as your epithet is Big Tabby Cat, you've obtained the Mahasvara King thaumaturgy, evil suppressor, orange spear. Chapter 1200. Evil suppressor, orange spear. The carefree divine ability can be upgraded. This thaumaturgy must be attached to a long-handled weapon. This thaumaturgy can help you suppress all evil, forcibly converting it into the source of power for the divine mountain of Sumeru. The more evil you suppress, the more the divine mountain of Sumeru will reward you. Specifically, the divine mountain of Sumeru will help you advance your Mahasvara thaumaturgy step by step, depending on your contributions, becoming stronger and stronger. Gu Qingshan raised an eyebrow. This supernatural ability was specifically designed to save the godly MT Shumi. No wonder it was released in advance. Not only that, the godly MT Shumi would also reward those who actively suppressed evil. It seemed that the situation on the Divine Mountains was truly dire. However, he was a swordsman. How could he have a polearm? Gu Qingshan suddenly thought of something. It wasn't that there weren't any. The true Crimson Demon Spear is just a long-handled weapon. Many thoughts flashed through Gu Qingshan's mind like lightning. The skinny tiger covered in ghost fire crouched down and suddenly disappeared. It had nothing to do with speed. It just disappeared in front of Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan's pupil shrank, and she also disappeared from the spot. In the blink of an eye, he appeared dozens of meters away. Meanwhile, the thin tiger appeared behind his original position. Divine skill, ground shrink. One man and one tiger. Both of them had mastered this divine skill. The thin tiger was startled for a moment before speaking in human language. Someone has mastered the same divine skill as this general. This won't do. The killing intent on its body burned brighter and brighter. A set of black armor appeared out of thin air and scattered into dozens of components, all of which stuck to the thin tiger's body. It actually had a set of armor. Gu Qingshan looked at the tiger, her guard raised to the maximum. This tiger was on the same level as him. According to common sense, when humans and beasts were in the same realm, the beasts would definitely be stronger than humans. However, humans were able to even out the situation in the battle against the wild beasts. This was because humans could create equipment and other powerful items to help them in battle. Now, beasts could do the same, and they were even better than humans. Gu Qingshan looked at the exquisite and heavy armor the other party was wearing and made such a judgment. Not only that, but it also knew the divine ability of the human race. No matter how one looked at it, this situation was strange. Gu Qingshan dispersed her thoughts, pointed her sword at the other party and shouted, "What kind of demon are you? Tell me your name. I don't kill nameless people." "Azure Dragon Shadow Hex. Bind." The thin tiger said disdainfully, "You think you're worthy of knowing my name? Whether or not I'm worthy will depend on your strength. To put it bluntly, you're stronger than me. You've killed more people than me, and you know more than I do, but I actually know one of your secrets, so I'm not afraid of you," Gu Qingshan casually replied. The thin tiger was taken aback. "You know my secret? What do you know?" It couldn't help but ask. Gu Qingshan smiled and said, "I won't tell you even if you kill me. Unless what?" Thin tiger asked. "Unless you tell me clearly why you're clinging to me," Gu Qingshan said. The thin tiger went silent, then chuckled. "I'm clinging to you? You think too highly of yourself. If you're not clinging to me, why are you blocking my way?" Gu Qingshan asked. The thin tiger replied, "I was on my way to ambush a human camp, so I wanted to kill a few to fill my stomach," Gu Qingshan said. So that's why the thin tiger looked at him. He kept his mouth shut. The thin tiger said, "It's your turn," Gu Qingshan asked. "What should I say?" The thin tiger replied. Tell me my secret. Gu Qingshan acted surprised and said, Ah, about that. I'm not going to tell you. The thin tiger froze, then suddenly erupted with killing intent. Roar! It suddenly let out a deafening roar. A sudden gust of wind blew through the forest. Sword-infused wind, Tai Sword Array. The sword-infused wind was directly shattered by the invisible roar. But this way, the thin tiger's roar was also broken by Gu Qingshan. Sword Array? What a weak force. I've thought it through, rather than slowly asking you. I might as well chop off your limbs and make you spill the truth in pain, the thin tiger lazily said. Its body trembled, then split into 3 identical thin tigers. The 4 thin tigers surrounded Gu Qingshan and spoke at the same time. In consideration of how hard it was for you to cultivate, I'll give you a chance. Tell me what you know right now. Gu Qingshan went silent for a split second. The Azure Dragon Shadow Hex binding had already restricted the other party's speed by 5%. For a sword cultivator like Gu Qingshan, this was more than enough. He was thinking about something else. The Tai Sword Array was powerful enough to kill a large number of enemies. But the Tai Sword Array was created by splitting sword phantoms. In the face of a particularly powerful enemy, this kind of scattered power was not enough. Because of that, only by combining all of the power into one and unleashing it as a single strike would it be unstoppable. Because of that, swordsmanship was ever-changing, eventually returning to its true form and manifesting as a single strike. Solitary Sword Realm. This was the true value of Solitary Sword Realm. Gu Qingshan's presence slowly faded until it completely disappeared. He stood there like a void of space. Killing intent rose. The 4 thin tigers disappeared again. Gu Qingshan also disappeared. A sky-high sword phantom suddenly appeared in the dark night. Secret Art. Full Moon Slash. This sword phantom was like an impenetrable crescent moon that hung in the night sky, illuminating the entire wilderness. In the blink of an eye, everything disappeared like an illusion. The shroud of night once again enveloped the land. In the forest, the 4 thin tigers turned back into one, its 4 claws cut off, its body pierced through by 3 swords, nailed to the ground. Gu Qingshan stared at the thin tiger. What exactly are you? A demon beast? Gu Qingshan asked. Of course, I'm the king of the beasts, the thin tiger scoffed, then scoffed. Sword cultivator, I can't accept this. If my movement technique hadn't gone a bit off, the outcome of the battle would have been different. Movement technique? Gu Qingshan shook his head. It's not your movement technique. You become slower. Thin tiger was startled. Then he gradually came to his senses. You sly bastard, if you're that good, then fight me fair and square. The thin tiger gritted his teeth. Gu Qingshan's expression was expressionless as he casually replied, I simply don't want to waste too much power to kill you, because I need to confirm something. Saying so, he took out a card and waved it. A spear enveloped in boundless crimson light appeared in his hand. Gu Qingshan shouted, Mahesvara Thaumaturgy, I order you to imbue this spear with the power to suppress evil. Instantly, the spear gave off a unique sensation. Gu Qingshan looked at the thin tiger. This prideful tiger stared at the true crimson demon spear in fear. No, don't let me return to Mount Sumeru. It begged. Gu Qingshan asked, What are you afraid of? The thin tiger didn't say anything and simply struggled. But its body was pierced through by the sword, unable to move no matter what. Gu Qingshan turned around, picked up Baijua's head from the snow, then returned to the thin tiger. Baizhua and Chang Yuli, thank you for inviting me to supper. The glowing crimson spear abruptly pierced through the white tiger's head. Nothing could stop it. The white tiger let out a shrill roar. All of a sudden, a ferocious phantom manifested from the white tiger's body, wanting to escape. But being stabbed by the true crimson demon spear, it couldn't escape no matter what. The true crimson demon spear shook. The illusory figure instantly shattered and disappeared into the void. At the same time, the thin tiger stopped struggling and laid motionless on the ground. It was dead. Gu Shan carefully buried Bai Shua's head into the ground and clasped her hands in greeting. "Rest in peace, young man," Gu Shan whispered. He cut off the thin tiger's head, pierced it with the true crimson demon spear, then carried it on his shoulder and flew towards the human camp. Chapter 1201. A large tiger head fell to the ground and rolled 2 to 3 meters away. Gu Shan put the true crimson demon spear away and clasped her fist towards the void of space. Southwest 15th Frontline Observation Tower. Corporal Gu Shan reporting the void of space shifted. The tiger head disappeared in an instant. Following that, a voice shouted, "Come in quickly." Gu Shan took a few steps forward and entered the formation. Inside the camp, there were cultivators everywhere, all of them wearing armor with a cold expression on their faces. Several enforcer cultivators were shouting, hurriedly ordering groups of cultivators to enter the warp formation and retreat towards the rear. As Gu Shan came in, she saw a few cultivators dressed as scouts checking the tiger head. "Confirmed, it is the ghost feeder Tiger King," one of the scouts stood up and reported. Hearing that, the general who was standing among the commanders smiled. "Very well. I've heard that Corporal Gu breaks through realms as easily as eating or drinking, but I didn't know that Corporal Gu was also here to cover the rear. Otherwise, why would I need to send scouts to investigate the Tiger King's whereabouts?" Gu Shan clasped her fist and calmly replied, "Chang Yu Li and Bai Zhua are most likely dead." The general's smile disappeared, replaced by a sense of sorrow. Everyone else also went silent. Gu Shan looked around, only to see that all of them were wounded. Their weapons were still in their hands, and their spirits were a bit tired. Seems like this was the last camp responsible for covering the rear for the frontline troops. A jade tag appeared in the general's hand. While reading, he muttered, "Corporal Gu, the military situation is urgent. I'll make it short. Please," Gu Shan said. The general replied, "This morning, there was a rumor that a corporal on the lookout managed to overcome his tribulation and became a Yama King or realm cultivator. Unfortunately, before we could check, the entire front line was wiped out." Gu Shan didn't say anything and only listened. The general muttered, "Yama King realm. Very well. I'll give you 3 choices. First, retreat according to the original plan and return to the rear. We'll wait for the military merit assessment to be completed, and we'll listen to orders after we're promoted. Secondly, the official inspection and appointment of military merits can wait until the war situation has stabilized. Now, I will transfer a group of people to you and temporarily appoint you as a centurion. You will immediately lead the army into battle. Thirdly, because you were able to kill the Ghost Feeder Tiger King on your own, and you're a sword cultivator, I'm afraid that leading an army will drag down your combat power. How about this? I'll transfer you to the scout camp and allow you to roam freely. You'll go to the front line to investigate the enemy situation and look for opportunities to assassinate those powerful monsters." Gu Shan pondered for a moment, then cupped his fist and said, "I'm willing to join the scout battalion." In Gu Shan's plan, she should have gone to Shifu directly, but the situation had changed. In this great defeat, he was at the front lines, so as long as he went deeper, he would definitely be able to obtain first-hand information on the Battle of Mount Meru. This way, it would be easier for him to find the crux of this world. When it came to leading an army into battle, Gu Shan was quite familiar with it. But the problem was that after he obtained the inheritance from the countless world fragments, his swordsmanship, cultivation, spells, and the 6 arts had all been rapidly improving through enlightenment time and time again. Now that he had entered a state of enlightenment, it was very easy for him to empty his mind and ignore the outside world. This way, he wouldn't be able to take care of the entire army, so it was better to go alone. Seeing his attitude, the general spoke in a low voice. "Very well. For cultivators of our generation, cultivation alone doesn't mean much. Only those who dare to enter the enemy's ranks by themselves are true heroes." Gu Shan continued. "I have a condition," the general asked. "What condition?" Gu Shan replied. "I need supplies, Most likely a lot of supplies. The general's eyebrows relaxed and smiled. What kind of condition is that? A Yama King Realm Cultivator should have access to high-level supplies. And since you're going to the front lines by yourself, no matter how lacking in supplies, this general will definitely make up for your needs. Men, bring me my badge. Very quickly, a black badge was presented in front of the general. The general used a crimson brush to write a military order on it and tossed it to Gu Shan. As Gu Shan received it, he saw a few words written in flamboyant calligraphy. Roaming cavalry loose general. Everyone became rowdy. Gu Shan was now a loose general. Although a loose general was the lowest rank among the generals, it could be said that he was no longer a soldier. At the same time, Gu Shan's expression changed. Inside his consciousness, the jade token given to him by the godly Mt. Shumi quivered slightly, showing some changes. A piece of information came out from the jade badge and spread throughout his thought sea. Gu Shan understood. The divine mountain of Sumeru was borrowing the hands of these cultivators to help him gain a foothold in this world. Compared to when he first came here, he would be able to control more resources and gather a certain amount of strength. This change in status meant that he had gained the first step of being recognized by the divine mountain of Sumeru. The general waved his hand. Go, collect your supplies, and return to the front lines. Kill as many monsters as you can along the way. Report back if there's any news. Understood. Gu Shan clasped his fist and left. An armament officer brought him along and gave him 2 formation discs, a bundle of talismans, 5 bottles of medicinal pills, 2 sets of battle armors, a string of ancient copper coins, and the corresponding spirit stones according to his rank as a wandering cavalry loose general. Is that all? Gu Shan asked. The armaments officer carefully answered. Ah, that's right. These are all good items for war. This is the last batch of supplies we have here. Do you have any other requests? Gu Shan replied. I'm not a greedy person, but there are a few things that I can't use. I want to exchange them for something else. The armaments officer smiled. That's fine, as long as General Gu is willing to pay the corresponding price. We still have 2 good offensive treasures left. I guarantee that they'll be very powerful. General can exchange them for another one. Gu Shan shook his head. I want to exchange for some cooking utensils and ingredients. What? Cooking utensils? The armaments officer froze, thinking that he heard wrong. Under Gu Shan's strong request, the armaments officer took all the talismans and 1 formation plate, brought him to collect a large amount of spirit cooking ingredients, as well as a set of cooking utensils. Everything was prepared. Thank you for accommodating me. Gu Shan was satisfied and clasped his fist. The armaments officer also clasped his fist, opened and closed his mouth, but didn't say anything. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and watched as Gu Shan left. The night deepened. The snow had stopped. A bone-chilling cold slowly swept across the world. While flying, Gu Shan touched his face with his hand. It was completely cold. His spirit energy barrier couldn't completely stop the natural chill of the world. This was the first time Gu Shan had ever seen something like this. Here, even the earth sword couldn't cut through the ground with its full power. The divine mountain world's origin was immeasurably vast and indestructible, which was why the laws of heaven and earth here were also unimaginably powerful. On the other hand, the 900 million world layers in the void had varying amounts of origin power, but the difference wasn't too great. That was because the divine race's world creation technology had always remained stable without too many fluctuations. Comparing the two, Gu Shan suddenly had a thought. Before entering the divine mountain, he had already noticed that the various worlds of the divine mountain were connected. Could it be something went wrong during the process of connecting these worlds? Gu Shan suddenly stopped his train of thought and formed a hand seal to completely conceal his presence. He leapt onto a tall tree branch, took out a formation plate, and instantly set up a concealment formation. Gu Shan had comprehended a lot of the pinnacle knowledge of the cultivation civilization, so this formation plate had been modified by him to be more effective than any other cultivator could ever imagine. He silently stood on top of the tree branch, not moving an inch. A second later, 3 flying swords appeared from the void of space. Gu Qingshan gestured for them to be careful. The 3 flying swords were silent and motionless, protecting his body. A few moments later, the ground began to tremble. At the front line, a boundless torrent of skeletons was rushing towards them. This torrent was like a terrifying tsunami, but it was moving faster and faster. A sea of skeletons. Countless skeletons were squeezing, rolling, and devouring everything in their path. Ahaha! They were rushing through the ground right under Gu Qingshan's feet, giving off a cacophony that made anyone who heard it feel numb. Gu Qingshan looked down at these skeletons and activated the Devil King Warden Rod in his thought sea. The Devil King Warden Rod lightly trembled but didn't react. Not the souls of the dead. Then were these things? Gu Qingshan shook his head and looked far ahead. In the middle of the night, the mountains were so vast that he could only observe them with his inner sight. The sea of skeletons was slowly swallowing up all the mountains, growing stronger and stronger until he couldn't see the end of it. This was an unprecedented scene. Even in the 18 layers of hell, Gu Qingshan hadn't seen such a sea of skeletons before. Strange, Gu Qingshan muttered, took out his roaming cavalry loose general armor, and equipped it. As soon as he put on his armor, he seemed to sense something and abruptly turned his head to look in the direction he came from, only to see a sky-high green flame rising from the direction of the camp. In that direction, the ground became illusory. At the same time, the faint image of another world appeared. It only lasted for a few breaths' worth of time. Gu Qingshan squinted his eyes for a bit. In that illusory world, he saw all sorts of strange monsters that he'd never seen before. All of a sudden, the 2 illusory worlds alternated. The illusory world disappeared. Where the camp used to be, all the trees and snow also disappeared. Gu Qingshan's expression changed. He's seen this before. During the battle against the Huang Quan Fragment World, the Red Gate used a divine skill, cycle of life and death. It was also like this at the time. Could it be that the entire camp was sent to the Huang Quan realm? No, that can't be right. That's not Huang Quan at all. There's a fish that escaped the net here, a heavy voice resounded. A giant claw reached out from the sea of skeletons, instantly pierced through the formation and reached for Gu Qingshan. Chapter 1202. As soon as the giant claw closed, it was stopped by 2 swords. The 2 human cultivator swords were as thin as a strand of hair compared to the giant claw full of bone spikes. But no matter how hard the claw tried, it couldn't close. A voice came from the sea of skeletons. Who would have thought a mere human cultivator would have such strength? Intense killing intent came from the sea of skeletons. A gigantic figure could be faintly seen swimming in the sea of skeletons, as if ready to attack at any moment. You want my life that badly? Aren't you afraid of killing one of your own? Gu Qingshan asked. The gigantic figure froze, then reflexively repeated, One of your own? That's right, fool. Even now you still can't tell. Saying so, Gu Qingshan's voice became deeper and deeper until it turned into a rough and vicious voice. In truth, I only turned into this human to test out a new thaumaturgy. Leaning on the branch, her body slowly grew larger. In just a few moments, a 3-meter-tall, 9-meter-long, thin, white tiger manifested. The thin tiger's body was covered in grayish-white flames, her killing intent rising. She roared, You dared to ambush this general. I think you want to fight me, don't you? The skeletal claw instantly retracted. The sea of skeletons began to move. Something similar to inner sight scanned through the thin tiger's body a few times before retracting. Following that, the other side spoke with a surprised tone. Why are you here? The thin tiger replied. I raided the human camp, ate a few cultivators along the way. The thin tiger was indeed doing such things. The voice spoke in surprise. I was wondering why I kept seeing human corpses along the way, all of them with the disgusting half-eaten appearance of you. It really was you. This thaumaturgy is incredible. Rumble, rumble, rumble. From the sea of skeletons, the gigantic monster slowly appeared. Human face, scorpion body, bony tail. The monster stared at the thin tiger, half jokingly and half retreating. It was my mistake this time, but who told you to grasp such a powerful thaumaturgy without telling me beforehand? Following that, her gaze fell onto the two flying swords. She hesitantly asked, "When did you?" The thin tiger didn't wait for it to finish and threw a flying sword down. The monster received the Chow-in sword and carefully observed it. Of course, the Chow-in sword acted like it was struggling madly. My goodness, so there's a weapon spirit. No, this is a divine armament. You actually obtained a divine armament. The monster couldn't help but exclaim. The thin tiger also threw the other flying sword down. The monster quickly took it and looked at it carefully. This was also a divine artifact. That damn ghost feeder Tiger King. How could he be so lucky to obtain two divine artifacts in one go? The monster looked at the thin tiger with extreme jealousy. The thin tiger crouched on the tree and asked, "What's the situation now?" The monster gripped the flying sword tightly and said, "No problem. The humans will collapse as soon as we come into contact with them. The last camp has also been destroyed. Next, we just need to drive straight in." Just as the thin tiger was about to continue, another female voice suddenly sounded in his knowledge. "See, young master, are you there?" The thin tiger was shocked. Shanu's voice. Shanu was his sword, so she naturally had a telepathic connection with him. But since they were so far apart, they shouldn't be able to contact each other. Unless she used some sort of unique method or treasure, she wouldn't be able to contact me. Under normal circumstances, Shanu wouldn't do this, because she knew that Gu Qingshan was constantly in dangerous situations and couldn't afford to be distracted. In other words, they must have run into some sort of problem on their side. Otherwise, Shanu wouldn't bother me so easily. In the blink of an eye, all these thoughts flashed through Gu Qingshan's mind. When the heaven sword disappeared into Gu Qingshan's knowledge, see earlier, Luo Bingli's joyful voice could be heard. "Shanu, long time no see. How are you doing?" Shanu said. "Bingli, let's talk later. I have something important to tell Gongzi." Gu Qingshan hurriedly replied. "Shanu, what's the matter?" "What's the matter?" Shanu hurriedly told her. "Gongzi, something happened on our side. Lola couldn't help but use a unique treasure to contact you, the deity of chaos. The Soul Shrieker has discovered that we've all gathered in the Bramblebird Kingdom and haven't made a move. It seems to have changed its mind and is currently returning from the past. Boss received information from the Abyss. The Soul Shrieker, Magic Dragon, and the God of Life are leading the army of chaos to return to our era at noon today. They are coming to the Bramblebird Kingdom to eliminate everyone here." Gu Qingshan immediately said, "You need to immediately return." His voice stopped. There is only one way to return to the past and avoid the Soul Shrieker, Magic Dragon, and the God of Life, which was to use the power of the 3 coins and their corresponding treasures. But Little Dusk's power has been drained and has fallen into slumber, while Lola only has the Great Bramble Tree. All 3 coins are with me. To return to the past, we must use the power of the Cherub of Condemnation in Gu Qingshan, as well as the Demon King order, and his power as the Demon King of Condemnation. If he doesn't return, everything would be useless. Gu Qingshan hurriedly asked, "Who else is in the Bramblebird Kingdom?" Shanu replied, "Bali and Meow brought a large group of people with them. Anna is also here, then Boss, Jang Young-ho, Yifei Li, and Lola. Gongzi, when will you be able to return?" Her voice suddenly became unsteady. A series of static noises resounded. "Zi pa." She could faintly hear Lola exclaiming in shock. "It's over. The distance is too far. This thing is overloaded and broken." Her voice stopped. The connection in her thought sea had been severed. Gu Qingshan froze. At this point, the monster that crawled out from the sea of skeletons was still muttering. "General Thin Tiger, I'll be the vanguard this time. Do you want to come with me, but do you want to go on your own?" Gu Qingshan looked at it. The Soul Shrieker, the God of Life, and Magic Dragon. Damn it. Lola and the others can't deal with these 3 at all. But I'm currently facing a tribulation. If I leave, the Masvara King tribulation would immediately fail, and I might even drag Sherfu down with me. No one has ever passed a Sumeru Lord Realm tribulation for several thousand years. Sherfu will have to face an even more dangerous situation with one less support. So how can I just leave like that? War God UI, can I use the 3 coins to return to this moment? Gu Qing-shan silently asked. The War God UI replied, You cannot. The Divine Mountain of Sumeru is not a normal space-time. This is a cultivator's heaven's tribulation, as well as a cultivator's fundamental secret, so it is under strict protection. Once you leave, you won't be able to return to this time. Gu Qing-shan sighed. He looked down at the monster and spoke in a low voice. Let us go together. As soon as he said so, the flying swords in the monster's hands gave off cold sword phantoms. One slashed off its claws, while the other slashed off its neck. Its head flew into the air, then fell to the ground with a resounding clang. The 2 swords returned to the thin tiger. One of them gave off a crimson glow and stabbed into the monster's body. Instantly, a faint figure flew out, turned into dust, and disappeared into the void of space. The power of evil suppressor. From a faraway sea of skeletons, a resounding roar resounded. Who is it? How dare you kill my vanguard? The thin tiger stayed silent and slowly returned to human form. The Earth Sword's mountainous heavy voice resounded. Didn't you plan to infiltrate the enemy and slowly gather information? Why did you suddenly attack again? Gu Qing-shan replied. There's no time. Luo Bingli's voice resounded, briefly explaining what happened. The Earth Sword sighed. By noon, there's definitely no time. You'll have to make a choice right now. After saying so, it fell silent together with the other 2 swords. On one side was her Sherfu, who was facing her tribulation. On the other side were her friends. Both sides were in an extremely dangerous situation, and Gu Qing-shan had no other choice but to give up on one side. Sherfu took me into Baihua sect during my most difficult time, carefully teaching and caring for me like I'm her own family. I can't leave her here by herself, Gu Qing-shan said. The Earth Sword replied. Then you'll have to face your tribulation first. No, Gu Qing-shan slowly replied. If I don't return, Lola and the others would probably have no choice but to run away. But where would they run to? Right now, the Abyss is at war with a parallel world. They can't even look after themselves. Even if they go to the Abyss, they'll most likely die on the spot. Besides the Abyss, they have nowhere else to hide, and they can't stop the 3 deities. Then, we still have to return? Luo Bingley cautiously asked. Gu Qing-shan didn't say anything for now. A few moments later, he suddenly smirked and spoke with a hint of mockery. I've already understood a certain principle since a long time ago, but who would have thought I'd still end up smashing my head against it like this? What principle? The Earth Sword asked in a resounding voice. Gu Qing-shan replied. In the midst of the apocalypse, weakness means sorrow. Saying so, his sleeves began to flutter without any wind as 2 faint figures manifested behind him. The dark figure was the power of the magic dragon. The dark blue figure was the power of the azure dragon. The 2 figures circled back and forth, seemingly exhausted. Luo Bingley abruptly became cautious. Gu Qing-shan, what are you doing? This definitely won't do. Gu Qing-shan recalled the true Crimson Demon Spear and replied, I'm guessing that no matter how strong the monsters on Mount Sumeru are, they wouldn't be able to surpass Sumeru Lord Realm by too much. Otherwise, no one would ever be able to face this tribulation. In other words, the power of 2 dragons should be enough to resolve everything. As soon as he said so, both the dark figure and the dark blue figure crashed into Gu Qing-shan's body. Lines of blood red text quickly appeared on the War God UI, frowny face emergency reminder. You have actively increased the rate of absorption of the power of the magic dragon and the azure dragon. The dragon race's power is too great, causing an unprecedented burden on your body and mind. You will be subjected to a power that is more painful than being cut into pieces by 1,000 blades. This power has surpassed the limits of what a human can endure. Even if you are Yama King, Realm Cultivator, you will most likely die from this pain and suffering. Gu Qing-shan abruptly uttered a roar of pain and anger. Embark. Oh! An intense gust of wind descended from above, struck his body, then quickly swept outwards with him as the center. The skulls on the ground were blown away to reveal a large, empty space. The sea of skulls immediately sensed the change here. More skulls gathered and piled up into a small mountain not too far away from Guqingshan. A gigantic shadow quickly crawled out from the depths of the sea of skulls and climbed up the mountain of skulls. A scorpion, a giant pale white scorpion covered in spikes and a humanoid face. It observed Guqingshan and shouted, "I am." Something flashed by and cut off its words. If time was stopped at this exact second, you would see a total of 10 gigantic sword phantoms manifesting as images that struck the monster's body. Boom! Before the monster could even finish its sentence, it had already been erased along with the entire mountain of skulls. The blinding sword phantoms fused into one and flew through the sea of skulls, all the way until it was out of sight. Secret Art, River Traversing Iron Sword. Heaven Sword 9 Combo. Guqingshan gritted his teeth until blood slowly flowed out of his mouth before he once again roared to the sky to vent the intense pain in his body and thought sea. AR. The green light and the black shadow scattered from his body, turning into a violent gust of wind. As time passed, the gusts of wind turned into an intense storm that blew the entire sea of skulls back. The skulls crashed into the sea of skulls behind them like a tidal wave, forming a wall of bones that grew taller and taller. All the skulls looked at Guqingshan and remained silent. A line of blood-red text quickly appeared on the war god, UI, frowny face, Guqingshan. You might die. You must stop right now. Guqingshan spat out a mouthful of blood and stood up. From now on, there's no need to waste words. His body moved, and he slammed into the wall of white bones. Chapter 1203. The bone wall trembled nonstop. An invisible force struck the sea of skeletons and turned into a surging wave. The entire sea of skeletons was pushed back. Guqingshan fell from the sky and fell to the ground. Ho! He breathed heavily. Blood seeped out from his pores, then was scattered by the air currents around his body, forming a thick mist around him. No one would dare to directly absorb the power of a dragon like this. But Guqingshan had no way out. Another vicious howl resounded from the sea of skeletons. Guqingshan struggled to raise his hand and formed a hand seal. The heaven sword turned into a streak of light and traveled over 1,000 miles. The howl from the sea of skeletons abruptly stopped. Secret Art, 10 Swallow Returns. This was a combination of Secret Art and Heaven's Choice. 10 Swallow Returns in a row was unstoppable. Even if he didn't die, he would still die. Guqingshan didn't have time to pay attention to the battle. He abruptly raised his head and crashed into the ground. Boom! A large crater was formed on the ground. Blood flowed along the cracked ground. Too much power was rampaging inside Guqingshan's body, to the point where he couldn't even feel normal pain. For some reason, various illusions suddenly manifested in his mind. Flowers fell from the sky, soft female voices, countless beautiful women came with the wind. These women didn't wear anything to cover their bodies. Their bodies were voluptuous and alluring, their skin as white as snow. All of them were looking at Guqingshan. Their gazes were filled with greed. What delicious food! As the women were about to approach Guqingshan, a crimson spear manifested behind Guqingshan and shook the air. Evil suppression. The women all screamed in pain as their bodies turned into skeletons. The skeletons scattered like smoke and faded away. Notifications were popping up on the war god UI. But Guqingshan didn't have the time to look at them. His entire being was immersed in strange images. Everything from the past was replaying in front of his eyes. My dad said that as long as I do well in the college entrance examination, he will reward me with a mecha that truly belongs to me. Wow, not bad. My mom said that as long as I pass the basic requirement, she'll take me to the Fushi Empire for a trip to see their mech combat techniques. Guqingshan, Your results are so good, your family should stop talking. He's the only one in his family. The other party gradually walked away. He looked down at his personal photon computer. Your personal credit points are 17,981 points. You are still 765 points away from paying for the mecha department tuition fee of a normal university. You are still 631 points away from purchasing a personal mobile mech. The scene flashed. Ching Shan, I know that you were framed during the prom, but I had no choice. My family and some other aristocrats want to deal with you. On the screen, the girl was crying bitterly. I was too naive and ended up hurting you. Ching Shan, hurry up and leave. Remember, you can only survive if you go to another country. The scene flashed. If you have alcohol, come find me. I'm at position 571. The red-haired girl's voice came from the communication talisman. With a hint of pride, she softly spoke. There's a place with very beautiful scenery that I've never told anyone about. When you come, I'll take you there. The voice faded away. All of a sudden, an angry voice resounded. Gu Ching Shan, that position has already fallen. You can't go. Another general pulled his collar and roared. The devil god is there. You'll die even if you go. Do you understand? Do you understand? In the end, I still went. There was no scenery. Nothing at all. The world turned to ash. The scene dimmed, then flashed away. On the banks of the great river, the west wind was mourning. Mr. Gu, there's no other way. Only that strike of yours. No, Gu Ching Shan heard herself speaking. With just our lives to power that strike, we won't be able to kill this demon lord. Rows of cultivators knelt down in front of her. Mr. Gu, I'm willing to die together. No, I'm willing to die together with you. That's right, me too. I'm willing to die together with you. Sir, die together. Why does my heart hurt so much? Scenes after scenes flashed in front of Gu Ching Shan's eyes. Gu Ching Shan looked up, letting the blood drip down from her forehead as she blankly looked forward. A sea of skulls gathered in front of her, slowly forming a high platform. Below the platform, the skulls scattered to reveal an army of ghosts of all shapes and sizes. On top of the platform, a few of the monsters were looking down at Gu Ching Shan. Their gazes were either cold, cruel, emotionless, or mocking. All of them only briefly glanced at Gu Ching Shan before quickly moving away. Their gazes were focused on the vast land behind Gu Ching Shan. The human clan's hinterland was right behind this lone cultivator. Kill him. One of the ghost leaders raised his hand and made a gesture. The army let out a deafening roar in unison and gradually increased their marching speed. They turned into an unstoppable torrent of metal, heading straight for Gu Ching Shan. Gu Ching Shan blankly stared at the ghosts. He opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to shout something, but the pain all over his body made it so that he couldn't utter a single sound. In a trance, another scene flashed in front of his eyes. War God UI, can I use the 3 coins to return to this moment? He asked. You can't. There's no way to redo this place. Shanu's worried voice came. Gongzi, they're coming to surround and kill us, surround and kill. There's no time. Either stay here to face the tribulation, or go save Lola and Zhang Young-ho. Followed by the Earth Sword's sigh. At noon, there's definitely no time. You have to make your choice right now, choice. I have to make my choice. Gu Ching Shan blankly stared at the approaching ghost army, listening to his own bitter voice. I've understood a certain principle since a long time ago, but I still couldn't believe that I'd still have to face it head-on today. That principle was too painful. It was 100 times more painful than the pain on his body. He held the Earth Sword tightly, coughing up mouthful after mouthful of blood. Power! A hoarse voice came from his throat. Countless blood-red lines of text appeared on the War God UI. Gu Ching Shan paused for a split second, wiping the blood from the corner of his eyes. Power! He roared in frenzy. Boom! Boundless black and green mist overlapped, tangled, and rapidly circled around him. The power of 2 dragons. Countless sword phantoms erupted from the sword, piercing through the dark night and illuminating the entire world. The The sword phantoms were as bright as the sun, descending upon the ground and turning into a raging tsunami. Secret art torrent, coupled with the 9 consecutive strikes of the heavens' tribulation. Gu Shan held the heaven sword tightly. Aark, following his furious roar, the sword swung down from afar. Secret art sea of 10 swords. Countless sword phantoms manifested as a raging tsunami, turning invisible as they crashed into the approaching ghost army. Unstoppable, all the ghosts were sent flying, but while they were still in the air, they had already been cut to pieces by the countless sword phantoms. The monster leader, standing on top of the platform, drew his weapon and shouted, "Damn it, it seems we'll have to do it ourselves." He suddenly noticed that something wasn't right. No one answered him. The monster leader looked left and right, only to see the corpses of the other leaders being skewered by a blood-red spear pinned to the ground. As he was about to do something, his body suddenly couldn't move. A hand gripped its neck and lifted it up. "What are you?" The monster leader was about to curse, but was stunned by the scene in front of him. The man was covered in a mist of blood, as if he had just been drenched in blood. Behind his back, there was a black and green glow that slowly manifested into 2 dragons that coiled in the void of space. "What exactly are you? Why did you corrode the divine mountain?" the man asked. The monster leader scoffed and answered, "I will never." Bam! Its head abruptly exploded. The heavy corpse fell to the ground with a dull thud. Gu Shan dragged the corpse and skewered it on the blood-red spear. "I understand now." He looked at the corpses and muttered to himself, "Actually, regardless of what you are, it doesn't matter." The true Crimson Demon Spear trembled. All the corpses were turned to dust and disappeared into the void of space. Lines of warning blood-red text were scrolling across the War God UI. Gu Shan didn't read it. He propped the blood-red spear on his shoulder and flew towards the monster leader. Chapter 1204. The Sea of Skeletons had already been reduced to dust. Gu Shan was flying forward. The blood-colored wind followed closely behind him, dragging a red shadow on the ground full of broken bones and wreckage. He attacked. He attacked. He attacked without stopping. Any monster that tried to attack him would be enveloped by sword phantoms that were several dozen times stronger than they were and killed on the spot. Only the truly powerful monsters would be able to stop Gu Shan's advance. He would stop and use the true Crimson Demon Spear to suppress them, allowing the divine mountain of Sumeru to refine the power within. Before he knew it, he had already returned to the front lines where humanity had fallen. Countless humanoid monsters were resting and reorganizing here. They had the faces of humans, but the bodies of wild beasts and insects. The higher-ranking generals were the complete opposite. They had the heads of demons, but their bodies were that of humans. They were also clad in battle armor. "Who goes there?" one of the patrolling monsters shouted. No one answered. Gu Shan threw the true Crimson Demon Spear up into the sky, wielding his sword with both hands. "Arg, arg!" A roar filled with pain burst forth from his throat. Like a falling star, he crashed straight into the enemy's ranks. Boom! Sword chi surged, enough to topple mountains and overturn seas. Both swords danced up and down, unleashing 7 strikes in a split second. The void of space trembled as a lightning dragon covered in lightning soared into the sky. Behind this lightning dragon were 9 other lightning dragons that followed, all of them soaring into the sky at the same time. Heavenly dragon soars. "All of you die." Gu Shan's body exuded a thick mist of blood as he spat out 2 words. 10 thunder dragons fell with a loud rumble. Countless arcs of lightning rampaged through the horde of wraiths. Countless screams of agony resounded. Gu Shan sheathed his sword and raised his hand. The true Crimson Demon Spear that gave off a crimson glow descended. He gripped it tightly. He charged towards the giant wraiths that were still in the dream jolt state. The crimson glow gathered into a single thread, then scattered like a thunderstorm. Boom, 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 boom. Wherever the demon's spear passed, the giant wraiths that were originally used to attack the city would explode into countless fragments that scattered into the wind and disappeared. He was unstoppable. In a dark and gloomy cave far away from the front lines, a few of the most powerful demonic ghosts silently sensed this. A demonic beast crushed the skull in its hand, suppressing its anger. The power he carries is destroying our army. No, I have to go to the front lines. A female voice said mockingly. That's the power of the legendary dragon clan. There are two of them. With just you alone, you'll only die if you go. The demonic ghost from before shouted. Then what do you think we should do? It would be a pity to destroy such a power. Watch me. A woman with an enchanting figure said in a low voice. She stood on top of countless skulls, striking a graceful pose as she danced barefoot. I'll use the dance of the great heavenly ghost to lure him in, and then completely destroy his consciousness so that he'll be under our control in the future. The woman danced as she chanted an incantation. The demonic ghost leader from before heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. Very well. No one has ever been able to resist your dance. This is for the best. All of a sudden, the woman stopped her dance. She seemed to have seen something as her eyes reflected the scene of Gu Qingshan's first official world offering dance. This kind of dance, she abruptly knelt on the ground, hurriedly begging, Spare me, spare me. I won't do it again." Before she finished, she had already turned into a pile of bones, fell to the ground, and died. This scene was so horrifying that the other demonic ghosts couldn't say anything for a while. If the other party was able to kill such a powerful demonic ghost from a distance of several thousand miles, then there would be no meaning in continuing this war. A voice suddenly came from above. "It's fine. That cultivator just so happens to have an ability to counter the dancer, so he can't directly kill us." The demonic ghost waited for a while. Sure enough, the cultivator didn't notice anything and continued to slaughter the horde of demonic ghosts at the front lines. Everyone sighed in relief. "Release that thing that we've sealed away. No matter how strong he is, he can't possibly be stronger than that thing." "Yes, that's how it should be," the 7 to 8 demonic ghost leaders all replied and chanted an incantation at the same time. The front lines. A small black dot abruptly appeared in the sky. As the demonic ghost leaders sensed this, they all stopped their incantations and appeared to be waiting to watch a good show. The black dot flew across the sky and crashed into the ground, giving off a deafening sound. It was a heavy, celestial jade coffin. A faint heavenly voice resounded from inside the coffin, as if telling the story of a long, long time ago. As the heavenly voice faded away, the sound of knocking could be heard from inside the coffin. Who's inside this coffin? Why is he knocking? All of a sudden, a roar resounded from not too far away. Gu Qingshan stared at the coffin, trembling uncontrollably. He was about to lose control of the corrosion of the dragon race's power. The overwhelming power caused him to fall into extreme pain, unable to think about anything else. A series of gurgling noises resounded from inside the celestial jade coffin, as if some sort of indescribable entity was observing the situation outside. It released its inner sight and locked onto Gu Qingshan without any hesitation. "Food!" A strange voice resounded from inside the coffin. Before it even finished speaking, Gu Qingshan wielded the earth sword and abruptly charged towards the celestial jade coffin. "Sanctuary, 1,001 times the weight. Earth's choice, 2,000,000 soul points." The radiance of the sword slammed heavily onto the coffin. The entire celestial jade coffin was sent flying, breaking into countless fragments in the air. Even the entity inside was slain by Gu Qingshan before it could even show itself. Art. Gu Qingshan couldn't endure the pain all over his body and roared to the sky. The dark cave. All the demonic ghosts were speechless. Crack. The sound of a skull being crushed could be heard. The voice from before spoke in a gloomy tone. "If that's the case, Sir Demonic Phoenix, please act," one of the demonic generals hurriedly said. "If Sir Phoenix acts, we will have to sacrifice 10,000 subordinates. It is fine. As long as there are living beings, we can create more subordinates. But this cultivator must die." "Understood, eh?" few dozen seconds later. Gu Qingshan had killed almost all the monsters at the front line. All of a sudden, he sensed something and looked up. The sky was enveloped by a cloud of flames, giving off an eerie red glow. A lazy voice resounded. "So it's you, a toy?" Gu Qingshan gritted his teeth, letting his blood flow all over his chin. His entire body, including his soul, was in so much pain that he couldn't answer. "Fine, there's no need to waste my breath." He abruptly turned into a mass of black fog that enveloped the entire front line. Magic Dragon Incarnation. In a split second, the black fog manifested into the shape of a dragon that slowly descended from the frontline camp. Roar! A dragon-shaped monster made entirely of black fog roared in anger. This black dragon flew straight up into the sky, charging straight into the cloud of flames. A voice filled with both shock and anger resounded from within the cloud of flames. "Bastard, you!" A long dragon roar drowned out the other party's words. The flame demonic phoenix and the slumbering black dragon. These two unparalleled monsters had begun their battle. Intense wind kicked up as a rain of fire rained down. The entire sky was constantly alternating between light and darkness. This kind of battle felt like the end of the world. Among the ghosts watching from afar, someone finally spoke up. "Sir, they don't seem to be able to decide a victor right now. Should we? No need." The voice that gave the order from before resounded. Carrying a sense of victory, the voice continued. "I'm not sure if you've noticed, but that black dragon is becoming more and more courageous as he fights. But his power is increasing too quickly. He's slowly losing his mind. Once he loses his mind, he'll be on our side." After sensing it for a bit, the ghost sighed in relief. "Just as I thought. How fortunate." At another location, ancient goddess city. Other than Gu Qingshan, every other Tribulation Realm cultivator had arrived. They stood guard in front of Xie Dao Ling, ready to listen to the orders of this great cultivator who was facing her Sumru Lord Realm tribulation. Xie Dao Ling didn't say anything and simply clasped her hands behind her back, silently observing the murals on the walls of ancient goddess city. These murals depicted myths and legends from the distant past. While observing, Xie Dao Ling appeared to be reminiscing. "I seem to remember something," she whispered as her spirit energy slowly increased. Her Mahasvara King realm spirit energy waves were slowly becoming stronger. All the cultivators were shocked. She can increase her cultivation just by observing the murals? What kind of background does this mysterious sect Master Xie have? While everyone was thinking, Xie Dao Ling suddenly stopped. At a faraway place, a light breeze could be felt from the front lines. Xie Dao Ling suddenly turned around. "Sword Chi, so chaotic. Oh no, this is Qingshan." She stopped observing the murals and threw a handful of copper coins forward. Clink, clink, clank, clank. The coins fell to the ground and formed a trigram pattern. Xie Dao Ling glanced at it and shouted, "Everyone prepare yourselves, we're going to the front lines to save Gu Qingshan." The cultivators were a bit hesitant. If Xie Dao Ling continues to increase her strength, this Summer Lord Realm tribulation won't be an issue. Why would she go to the front lines? Gu Qingshan is Iyama King, Realm Sword Cultivator. Can't she just run away if she can't win? One of them said, "Fellow Dao Seeker Gu is a sword cultivator. Of course you're willing to fight at the front lines. How about you continue to observe the murals and increase your strength?" "That's right," another person agreed. "The stronger you become, the greater your chances of passing this tribulation. As for fellow Dao Seeker Gu, forgive me for saying too much, but you can't keep protecting him. He needs to train his swordsmanship. When the Divine Mountain of Sumru sent him to the front lines observation tower, there might have been a deeper meaning to it." Xie Dao Ling shook her head. "Deeper meaning? I only know that he's currently in a very dangerous situation." Her figure suddenly grew larger, turning from a little girl into a beauty that could topple cities. An even greater power flowed from her body. This level of power was almost twice as strong as before. The cultivators all stared blankly at her true appearance, sensing her power, completely speechless. It was truly incomprehensible. Her power had already surpassed the peak of Mahasvara King or Realm. If you don't want to go, I'll go by myself. Dao Ling suddenly disappeared in front of everyone. She took to the sky and quickly flew through the sea of clouds. Ahead, at the end of the sky, the air of death was becoming thicker. Endless darkness and flames were spreading between heaven and earth, as if it was a hell that could melt all living beings. Sensing the presence within, Dao Ling couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Boundless killing intent abruptly flowed from her body, intimidating all living beings around her. She muttered, "Regardless of whether it's the divine mountain of Sumru or those wraiths, whoever dares to touch my disciple, I will destroy them." You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.